Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis. Sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chaunce, a.k.a. Chaunce.
Reminders, before we get to today's interview, this is awesome and also very stupid that it took us this long to think of it.
It's a reminder, and it's the stupidest thing of the week.
Yeah.
Times 8 years.
Actually, I genuinely don't know if other podcasts do this. I don't know how the light bulb went off, I think.
Surely others do this.
I only listen to one other podcast on Patreon, so I don't have the biggest sample size, but they don't.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well then maybe we are breaking ground here.
Yeah. But that is another reason why you should support us on Patreon is we are now going to share our normal podcast on Patreon sans advertising. So if you are annoyed by hearing us trying to sell you stuff, then head on over to Patreon and you can get it ad-free. We're still doing the lowest tier at $5 per month, which is, as Chaunce pointed out, what was it, 5 quarters per... What was your breakdown?
Yeah, so quick mental math. If there's 4 weeks in a month, 4 Mondays in a month, that's $1.25 an episode for no ads whatsoever.
Yeah.
And that's if there's 4 Mondays in a month. Sometimes there's 5 Mondays in a month.
Yep.
In that case, it's only $1 an episode.
I think a week is, or a month is 4.3 and change weeks per month.
Yeah.
Weeks. As an employer, that's a thing that you know. But yeah, so you guys can get extra content and content without any sort of advertising for as little as 5 quarters per month. So if you hate ads, there's a very cheap way to do it. But also, we work very hard on getting good advertisers on the show. Is there anything else? Oh, actually, yes. If you're listening to this, then you already know. This was something I probably should have plugged earlier. Again, this was a light bulb morning for me. But Patreon supporters also get a first glimpse at Jabba's beard getting shaved.
Oh, yeah. We're going to put that on their stat.
Yeah. It should be uploaded. If you're listening to this now, it's already in the past. But people who are Patreon supporters got to see Jabba's beard get shaved the day of the podcast.
Yeah.
You get first glimpse at that. The rest of you will have to wait. Have to look at the publication date. I don't think the episode's out yet. I forget.
How did it go?
It was so good.
How did he look?
I got a little beard bib thing for him.
Oh, did you?
Because I didn't want to make a giant mess on stage.
Yeah.
So, Amazon's coming through there.
And the photos of him wearing a bib with no beard is going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I toyed with the idea of trying to actually get a real barber to come in to do this and give him a clean shave. Maybe we can still do that. I just haven't figured all the logistics out. We can chat after this.
Yeah.
See what makes sense.
Do you know any? I'm sure you know a barber.
I mean, I have a barber, but I don't know if I've never talked to him about it. I've never talked to him, period.
Hey,
I come in, I say, what do you want? I said, the thing that you do.
Yeah.
And then that's the end of my conversation with him 100% of the time. I don't even know his name.
You don't usually say, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Do you want to come over and shave my friend's beard?
I specifically go to this person because he does not talk to me.
I love that.
Yeah. And the haircut, I'm not exaggerating, the haircut is 7 minutes.
Wow.
And there's no appointment. You literally just walk in and walk out. Even if there's 2 people in front of me, that's 15 minutes of waiting.
That's efficient.
It's not even as cheap as you would think based on it's a $30 haircut.
What if we auction off, I know this is in the past now, but what if we auction off the ability to shave part of Jabba's beard at the show itself?
Yeah. I think that ship has sailed considering it's already happened.
Yeah, but someone can
bid on it.
Give the CDC TC a 20 and just take a little stroke at his beard.
We'll have to brainstorm on that after this, but yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think there's ideas out there. So yes, if you guys want additional Backpacker Radio content like Jabba's beard getting shaved and one-off episodes and our regular episodes sans ads, head on over to patreon.com/backpackerradio. Next, but not nextly. I don't even know how you do that. I was going to say last but not least, but we have one more. Next, but next is we are officially doing the vlogger program for 2025, the Trek. This year we're going to be very selective with it. And there's going to be a whole bunch of perks involved with the program, including a trail stipend and some other awesome goodies. You can get all the details through the link in the show notes if you're taking on a thru-hike of the AT, PCT, or CDT in 2025 and are planning on vlogging your adventure, please check out the link in the show notes. Last but not least, this is exciting. This is the thing, I guess we did tease it last year. It just never came to fruition, but it's happening now.
I don't think we teased what it was. I think we teased that something might happen, and then we stopped teasing.
I think we went as far as to say that it was likely going to happen and where it was going to happen, and then I don't know if we followed up after that. That's how I remember it. But live podcast, Austin, Texas. It's happening.
Guys, I've never been to Austin before.
You've never been to Austin?
No.
Austin's awesome.
Yeah.
Except for in the summer, which we're not doing.
Yeah, no, we're not doing it. When are we going?
We're going April 17th. And I don't have the venue in front of me right now. I imagine by the time you hear this, there will be a live link to an Eventbrite page as of the recording. That's not the case. But yeah, Rachel mentioned that was an easy thing to do. So head to the link in the show notes. If you live in the Austin area, we would love for you to come. I don't think we're going to tease our guest either. We're going to make it a super special surprise.
But it's a super special guest.
Super special guest. This is a guy we've been talking to for years to get on the podcast, and he just hasn't been in the area. So we're putting him on a jet plane to come out and join us in Austin.
Yeah, we are officially flying people places, which is nuts.
Yep.
And I can't believe you forgot the name of the venue because it is Quacktastic. It is Captain Quack's Sound Space. How do you come up with a name like that? That's where we'll be.
Is that
April 17th.
Billy Madison? Not Billy. Yeah, Billy Madison.
Quacktastic. Yeah, that's Billy Madison.
Yeah. So yeah, very exciting stuff if you guys are in Texas, which I know is a small state.
Yeah, so there's not many people there. The population isn't that big. But the few of you guys that do live there, if you want to see us, we'll be in the up-and-coming small town of Austin.
Yep. And shout out to Gossamer Gear. They're making this possible, and we'll be giving away a shit ton of their stuff. They're based in Austin, and they're going to be like, basically, if you have a pulse, you're going to get something cool.
Yeah.
Okay, no more beating around the bush. Let's get right to our interview with Patrice and Justin Levine. We are joined by today's guests, Patrice and Justin Levine. They're backpackers, long-distance hikers, adventurers, motivational speakers, environmental educators, innkeepers and property caretakers, gear testers, bloggers, road trippers, van lifers, nomads. The list goes on. The Levines hiked the AT southbound in 2011 and have been living a life less ordinary ever since. A life that includes hiking Te Aurora in 2015, being property caretakers, and moving to Alaska to live in a 300-square-foot cabin. Patrice and Justin, thank you so much for joining us here in Backpacker Radio.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate it.
I should say joining me. Chaunce is not making it today. She's on a work trip. Unfortunately, could not make it. Some rescheduling with sickness. How are you feeling?
I'm good. Ready to go.
Okay, good.
Feeling great.
Good. Let's start off with the Appalachian Trail.
Yeah.
We're 2011ers, all three of us here at the table. What was the inspiration to hike the AT in 2011?
I think I'll just blame Justin.
Yeah. So when I met Patrice, I was at grad school at Arizona State, and I met her there, and I started talking about this trail I was going to do. And she actually hadn't heard of it, even though she grew up in New Jersey. She's like, tell me about this trail. I said, well, it's 2,000 plus miles across many states. I want to walk it. She's like, I'm in. Let's do it. So we talked about it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, that we met in like 2002, so we didn't hike until 2011. And originally we got married in 2006, and we were like, oh, maybe we'll do it as a honeymoon hike, and we just didn't. So it took a number of years before we were ready to leave our jobs and feel like we could step away from income.
Yeah, we were recreational backpackers. Went out for a night or two nights here, a couple days, car camp, this and that. We've done a lot of that living in Arizona. And then, we basically were like, well, let's do this. And we, life gets in the way, jobs. Oh, we got to work. You got to have a career. And we're like, you know what? Let's step away from this. Let's step away from this typical lifestyle and lead this atypical lifestyle. Yeah. And so in 2011, we both quit our not high powered, but jobs that we made a lot of money in this terrible recession. Yeah.
What were you doing?
I was the director of Parks and Recreation in a community in New Hampshire, and Patrice was a medical writer.
Okay.
And so we'd like
a medical writer.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah. Well, it was mainly I was doing healthcare communications for the consumer. So I would take really complicated medical reports and distill it down so that the everyday person can read it. And I did that for 10 plus years. Huh. I went to school to be a writer. Didn't know I was going to be a medical writer, but it was a really good way to make money as a writer.
Uh-huh. And how did you guys meet?
Yeah, so Patrice was in Arizona doing service work, and I was going to grad school at Arizona State, and we met at a hiking and backpacking climbing club that met at a bar. And I just moved from New Jersey to Arizona to go to grad school, and I stood up and said, hi, my name is Justin. I just moved here from New Jersey. I'm going to grad school at ASU, and I like doing this and that and this and that. And she ran up to me after the meeting and said, I'm from New Jersey. And I was like, oh, Jesus, I want to escape New Jersey. I don't want to meet anyone from New Jersey. I want to meet a nice Arizona girl or something like that, you know?
Crazy thing is that we grew up like 10 miles apart in New Jersey, didn't know each other. And so my mom always said like, oh, you had to move like 2,500 miles away to meet your mate.
Yeah. And we were both into the outdoors, you know. Enough.
I would say I was like really amateur. You know, I had gone on one backpacking trip before I met Justin. And so when I met him, he was, you know, he would like have these big dreams about backpacking, and Appalachian Trail was one of the ones that he mentioned.
Yeah, it was like, we're going to climb all these mountains, do all these trails, let's do this. And so we were in New Hampshire both working, and we just said, you know what, let's leave our jobs, let's do this, let's save enough money that we can hike this trail for whatever, maybe it'll take us 6 months, who knows. And then 6 months afterwards, let's have some money that we can try to get back into our careers and do this. And, you know, the trail, you know it, the trail changes everyone.
I'm sure you
changes everyone.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, you know the story.
I absolutely do know the story. Before we move on from the school thing, does grad school at ASU live up to the stereotypes of the college experience at ASU?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No.
So you're not taking tests from like a pool or?
No, it does not. It's not like the undergrad experience.
Okay.
Although with that being said, I was really surprised. He was getting his grad degree in like recreation management or something, and I was like, does that really exist?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, nowadays I think it's far more common than it was in the early 2000s. And I was like, are you just playing like wiffle ball all day?
Yeah, I mean, there were only a couple universities that had graduate programs in recreation management, and so this was what I chose to go to Arizona State, and I had my undergrad in therapeutic recreation. So a lot of people always made fun of me and said, like, what are you playing, wiffle ball and, you know, bowling? Is that what you do for recreation management? So I,
what's therapeutic recreation?
So prior to that, I worked like in a nursing home, in a skilled nursing home with like Alzheimer's patients or people with brain trauma and stuff like that. So just doing like therapeutic programs for them. So that was kind of my undergrad. I mean, I really had like no direction of what I was doing until like my junior year of college, when I was like, I was a business management. I was a C student. I was like, I don't know what I want to do. And I saw this posting. It says, go to Walt Disney World and go to Disney University. And I was like, this sounds unbelievable. This is real. So I applied for it and I got accepted, and I changed my major to therapeutic and recreation management. And I went to Walt Disney World. I went to Walt Disney University, where it was like hardcore, like tourism, learning about the industry, going to school and working. And so that kind of like, I was like, wow, this is like a real thing. You can do this. And so from school, I was director of Parks and Rec for a couple communities. You know,
I would say that the Disney thing has always really been the thing that in interviews what people want to talk about.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about Arizona grad school or my undergrad or all the work I've done or this. You went to Disney University? Like, was this true? I'm like, yeah. Yeah.
Speaking of educational stereotypes, I'm picturing like Mickey Mouse as the lecturer in front of the class or something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was the real deal, and it was strict. People were tossed out of the program for, you know, the minuscule things, for not completing courses, not going to the school. You know, it was work, play, stay. And so, you know, we worked a job. I was a lifeguard at Blizzard Beach. And so, and then I'd go to school through Disney University, and they would teach you tourism classes, and then you'd all live in a big compound, which was dangerous because everyone would party, and that would be the biggest problem. That's why people would get kicked out.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I still take away things from Disney every day that I learned.
I've learned things from you, from just, you know, when you work in hospitality, like the Disney principles were really, really great core foundation to have.
Yeah. So such as
you know, which way is the bathroom? Well, the bathroom's not that way because pointing's rude. The bathroom's that way. So like Disney,
using your whole
you use
hand.
your whole hand. You don't point. You do that. Another thing I learned is whenever you see someone taking a picture, you go up to them and you take their picture for them. So we still do that today everywhere we go, whether we're on the Appalachian Trail, the TA, New Zealand, in Alaska. I mean, we're both guides in Alaska. We do this all the time. And, you know, you don't want a picture of the other. You want a picture of the two of you together or your whole family. So that's the kind of thing I learned. And
maybe that's an old-fashioned idea just because now people take selfies.
I know.
That first one's really interesting. I never thought about pointing is rude.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, I understand that. I would have never been able to vocalize that, though.
Yeah.
Is the Disney education program, is that meant as like a incubation program? Like, or do people usually graduate and then go work at Disney?
I would say, I don't know, not a lot of them. I ended up staying a little bit longer and working for Disney a little longer, but it's called the Disney College Program. So it's kind of like an internship. It's kind of like when you go to Spain to study, or you do, you go somewhere.
JP Morgan or something.
Yeah, you go work at JP Morgan for an internship or something like that. This is what this was, but it was an application process. You had to apply for it. It was competitive, but I do think some people stay at Disney. I mean, ideally, I would have loved to stay there, but I had to go back to school and finish school. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would work for Disney again if I could.
Yeah.
The crazy thing at Disney is most people start off at the same level, whether you have a high school education or a PhD. You're kind of starting at the same level. Of course, unless you're like drawing or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was an experience, and I was a VIP tour guide for a little bit, so I took the rich and famous people around and did stuff like that. And but the lifeguard was, and I've been a lifeguard my whole life in New Jersey, and I did nothing except don't run. Like the first day there, you're pulling people out that don't know how to swim. This was like the real deal, lifeguarding. And
yeah.
It was scary. I mean, at times, and they would throw audits on you and put like people floating down the lazy river with a mask on like this, and you jump in, and then a film crew would come out and they'd be taping you and be like, okay, so here's what you did right, here's what you did wrong, here's why you're being fired, here's why.
It feels like boot camp for like hospitality.
Yeah. It was. It was, yeah.
That's interesting. And this still exists today?
Still exists. The Disney College Program still exists,
wow,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So any of you out there that are getting into hospitality.
This is like 25 years old. Your experience is quite different.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's very different now.
I'm sure it's different, but it still goes on.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like you guys were living a pretty traditional, like, corporate job lifestyle prior to the AT in 2011, and then that kind of exploded things for you.
Yeah, Weekend Warriors. Yeah, we did a little test run the year before. We did the Long Trail just to be like, let's see what it's like.
And that was really, I would say, the longest we both had been out. Maybe we had done 2 nights out, but and we only did a portion of the Long Trail, so I think we were out for 10 days. So it was like the gear shakedown, the everything. Like we really didn't know what we were getting into.
No.
But again, like it was his idea about thru-hiking. I didn't even know it was something that existed. And I remember leading up to it, there was like this DVD series that I watched about how to hike the AT. And it was, it was like a 7-part. You probably don't remember.
Was it Warren Doyle?
No. But I just I didn't know what I was getting into. But I liked backpacking and generally liked being outdoors. So I just thought, yeah, why not?
Yeah, let's just get on this trail and do it. And, of course, as you probably did, we didn't tell people we were through hiking. We were hiking. We were hoping to get to the end.
Yeah.
I
went the opposite route.
Yes.
I knew it was going to be very difficult, and I told everyone I was going to finish this full thing. Definitely held myself behind the gun there. Yeah. So, AT 2011 drink. What year was the Long Trail or the Long Trail section hike?
Just 2010.
Yeah,
okay.
The year before, just to warm up and see what gear we're going to use. I mean, we were big, like, REI garage sale people. Like, we'd go to REI garage sale and sleep out the night before to get our gear on discount. That's how, like, we grew up.
That's how that's how it used to be,
and
right?
so we tested all our REI garage sale stuff on that hike, and we're like, yeah, this worked, this didn't work.
Yeah, like our water filter thoroughly failed for us on the Long Trail, and we're like, we're going to have to
think about that
this
again. Yeah. Our tent failed, so let's get big Agnes tent. Let's go a little bit better. Yeah. So and so we quit our jobs in New Hampshire. Everyone was shocked. Our parents, of course, were like, "What are you doing? You can't do that." We're like, "Well, we're gonna go hike this trail, and we'll see what happens. But we'll go back to the real world after we do this trail." And
Should we address southbound versus northbound?
And we never
can.
And we've never gone back to the real world since. Never gone back. This is since 2011. We lived this life less ordinary, where we've done anything. We throw something at the wall, see if it sticks. If it does, great, let's do it.
Yeah. You mentioned the REI garage sale. That definitely felt like more of a thing back in the day.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
I don't even know if they do them anymore.
They do them. They have racks in the store. So like in Fairbanks and Anchorage, we're up in Alaska, they have a rack that's the REI garage sale rack.
Well, I don't know. Like I don't know how Denver REI does it.
I don't know how Denver does it.
Yeah, I don't know. I remember they used to be events.
Do you remember going to them? Did you ever go?
So I actually never went to it. I had a buddy that was like he would go to every one by him. Yeah. No, but and REI's come along, or I should say, has changed quite a bit since those days. They recently implemented a policy where certain customers are not allowed to use their return policy.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. So that whole that whole scene has definitely changed. But at that time, around like 2010, you know, we were living in the Northeast, and we would go to the REI store and like literally sleep out front overnight to get like first in line to go through the racks.
Yeah. I remember the deals were crazy.
They were.
Like a
They were
$300 tent for
They're great.
$20 or something. Yeah.
They're great. Yeah.
Okay, so you land AT southbound. Why southbound?
So at the time, we were living in the Northeast, in New Hampshire, and we had hiked a lot of the White Mountains. And, you know, like a lot of people say, oh, the Whites are so hard. And we just, I don't know. I think it was partially my reasoning. I was worried about having this deadline of getting to Katahdin by the October deadline when they typically close. And I was like doing all this math about how long it would take us. I thought it was going to take us 6 months. And I was really worried that we wouldn't be able to finish in time, even though I wasn't like dead set on the goal. So I like the idea of southbound just because I'm like, we're familiar with the Northeast and we don't have as much of a deadline then.
Yeah.
So that was really the main reason we went
and
southbound.
I kind of let her decide. And then she told me, she's like, well, you know, like 1% of the people do it southbound and 99%. And I was like, well, I don't want to hike with a lot of people. I'd rather just be you and I, and we just do this hike. Now, lo and behold, the minute we stepped on Katahdin, we met Fire Marshal, and he hiked the whole trail with us. So,
but we didn't see
and
a
we
ton.
certainly enjoyed seeing, you know, the crew doing the high five and meeting people at shelters and talking to people and all of that. I guess that's why.
What was your start date?
We started June 6th, 2011.
Okay.
So do you remember like around where you were? Because we passed northbounders, Vermont, Massachusetts, mainly.
Yeah.
Like it's maybe a little bit in New Hampshire.
Yeah. I felt like I encountered the most southbounders probably in the Whites.
Okay.
But this is also stretching my memory now.
Sure, I know.
What are we, 13 years out?
Yeah.
I know.
I feel like probably between Vermont and the Whites. So yeah, somewhere. I brought my journal because I'm a nerd like that. Yeah.
But I was a couple weeks ago. I was looking up to see when we passed. We have some other friends who did it the same year in Northbound. We met them on the trail, just talked to them for 5 minutes, and then we're lifelong friends now. But in any case, we were recently trying to figure out like where we crossed paths, and we really even couldn't. Like I didn't write their names in the journal or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just said like we passed a lot of northbounders today.
Yeah, sure. I'd have to cross-reference
Yeah.
the photos in my camera roll to actually see where it was and what day.
Yeah.
It'd be difficult to figure out, but we did meet a lot of northbounders. I would say like Vermont, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
We were kind of in like the front part of the southbounders, at least that year.
We met some great people. It was a lot. I remember some shelters were completely full, and I wasn't really a shelter person. So, but and
that was the only time they were full for us.
Yeah, that was the only time. Yeah, otherwise it was quite empty. And we were kind of in the front of the pack-ish of the southbounders that year.
Yeah.
And we remember some people. I meant the couple, Country Mouse and Shadow. Remember them? We're best friends with them. And they live in Mexico. We visit them all the time. And then the one person that really sticks out is this Kiwi that we met, who told us about this brand new trail
that had opened up in
that just
2011.
opened up. And
that was
like,
its first year.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
She told us about this brand new trail, and Patrice wrote it down in her journal and this and that. And she's like, maybe someday we'll do that. I'm like, that's far away.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Do you feel like the transition to the AT hiking southbound was easy? I feel like if you're going to do a shakedown hike, the long trail is the perfect thing for the AT, specifically relative for the southbound version of the AT. Do you feel like you hit the ground running, or how are the early weeks?
Running? No.
Not running, no.
No, it took us 10 days to get through the 100-mile wilderness.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. And it probably took you 3, something like that. Yeah.
Not quite that fast.
Yeah, but yeah.
No, but I feel like we just had a good approach about it, and it wasn't about rushing at that point. And like the terrain was hard, whether you were in Georgia or Maine, I felt. I don't know. But I have no comparison.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we had hiked in the Whites. We had done some overnights and some hiking. So we kind of were familiar with that. And we're like, yeah, let's just do that. And let's just walk south and have no plans so we can finish whenever. Because again, we were through hiking. We were hoping to finish. And it worked out.
So from what I understand, there's a standout insect encounter story from your southbound hike
Yes.
was that?
Yeah, so I was stung by the Asian giant hornet, and that was in Virginia.
In her eye.
Right in the corner of my eye.
Yeah. If you all picturing Sloth from Goonies, that's how she looked for 3 or 4 days.
If I didn't have a trail name, it would have.
How painful is that?
So it was not as painful as you would think. They are enormous.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm thinking, my memory is not serving me that well, but in my mind, it was as big as my fist coming at me. And, but it just hurt momentarily. I'm like, I didn't know what happened. It just kind of stunned me. I saw that something was coming at me. And so I wasn't in a lot of pain, but then the very next day is when I woke up and I was so swollen.
Yeah. I mean, I thought she got bit by a snake or kicks. I was like, what is going on? And she's like holding her face, and I'm like, and we, Fire Marshal and I are looking at it, and we're like, oh yeah, it looks like something. And then we saw the tree, and we saw these things, and yeah, they were big, they were huge, and it started to swell up a little bit. And I think we were at a hostel that night.
We did, yeah. We were at a hostel,
and you woke up the next day, and we're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
We just load your prednisone.
The hostel manager was like, oh, I think you need to go see a doctor. But our sister-in-law is a doctor, so we just called her, and she's like, you're carrying prednisone. Just take some prednisone, and you should be okay. And it eventually went down like a week later.
Yeah.
The swelling.
Yeah. But she pushed through it, and she continued hiking. We did
Yeah, I
whatever,
did.
10,
I
15,
was like
20
blinded.
miles. Yeah.
In the
One-eyed.
Were you getting comments from other people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They were all, I mean, we didn't see a ton of people. This is,
Yeah.
I forget what month it was, but it was in Virginia. But people were like, what happened?
Yeah.
And they thought I think that we had sort of like this ongoing joke between us, because I was hiking with 2 males, and they're like, is she okay?
Yeah, sure. Getting stung by anything on your eye sounds incredibly alarming, but when you describe something the size of your fist landing there, do you recall the sense of anxiety that you felt in that moment?
I think it was more like I didn't really think anything of it because I didn't know anything about Asian giant hornets, but we did have internet access that evening, and when we looked it up, it said that they are deadly.
I'm looking at pictures of this, and
Yeah.
it's like someone's entire hand.
Yes.
It bit you, or did it sting you? Because one of them is worse, right?
Yes, and we don't have a clear answer on what happened to me, but it also said like the internet is a scary place, right? So when I was Googling it, it said, well, normally if you get stung, they will all come after you. And that's sort of what creates a death, because you're like attacked by them.
Whoa.
And so at the time, we were like standing right around where the nest, I guess, was, trying to figure out what was going on with me. And so we hung out in the area. I'm just really glad they didn't return for a second feeding.
Sure. Yeah. So it sounds like maybe you were bit, but even if you were bit, like to have that kind of swelling response is still terrifying.
They did something to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn, that's wild.
It was wild, yeah.
So you mentioned that the AT is kind of what exploded your sense of the world and not wanting to, or living a life less ordinary.
Yeah, I think when we were, because we had both left our jobs, and Justin worked in recreation management, and I was a writer, and so as we were hiking, we were staying at these hostels, and we kind of became interested in running a hostel together. So we were thinking, actually, let's buy a hostel. And had been looking at all these different properties.
You were taking notes, like, at this spot they could use a hostel because there wasn't one.
Something like that. And
but I think we were dreaming too, because we had no money.
Right.
We had like $10,000 saved up to live off of or something afterwards,
And so as we were continuing on, we stayed at Bear's Den Hostel in Virginia. I don't know if you stayed there or if you stayed at Black
I stopped
Bear.
in long enough to get a pint of ice cream.
Yes,
Okay,
famous ice cream.
And lo and behold, we were talking to the current managers, and we told them sort of a little bit about ourselves and how we were dreaming of hostel management. And they said, oh, well, we're actually leaving our position. And so the timing might be right. If you two want to apply, you seem like a great fit. you could think about that. So we actually applied to be the managers of Bears Den Hostel while we were on the trail. And that one's managed by the ATC. Yeah. So it's one of the few, places on the trail that are managed by them. And so we applied and we got the position. So
we applied. We interviewed as we were on the trail, maybe once or twice, and then we finished in October. And I think we
didn't start until the December. New year. So we had a little bit of time to.
And we're like, wow.
We're all right, we're going to try this.
We're going to run Bears Den. This is crazy. And luckily, the previous managers were really good folks, Scott and Marie, and they lived really close. Yes. So they were really good mentors, and we really got along with them. Yeah.
What we learned quickly is that hostel management it's not a job. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle, yeah. And the people we met, everyone from homeless people to, scientists and doctors to people thru-hiking for the first time who are taking things out of the packages, people who have thru-hiked the trail 20 times, and it was just an experience to meet all these people, and we enjoyed it immensely. But
I think that was sort of that next step into how much we loved hospitality together and working together. And we're like, we don't necessarily want to return to that traditional, work
9 to 5 for the man. Yeah.
So, in addition to pointing out where the bathrooms are without pointing, what of the skills and experience that you gained from the Disney internship did you carry over to the hostel?
Well, I think, the main thing I learned at Disney is that you never know who you're talking to. You never know. And at Disney, I did take around a lot of rich and famous people. I took around rich and famous people that I didn't even know who they were. And, you just don't know who you're talking to. So you don't know who's walking in this hostel that's covered in mud and dirt, that has the crappiest gear. They could be the executive of a huge company, You just don't know who these people are. So I think what we learned is we treated every single person at this hostel like they were the same person. I don't care if you're out for a day hike or if you're through hiking or you're section hiking, which we think is actually a lot harder than through hiking. We met people who were section hiking for 10, 20 years to complete this trail. And so I think what we learned is, every single person that walked in was an individual person, and we treated them, exactly the same. And we don't care if you're out for a day.
That's the beauty of it, is that we were able to sort of give this support to whatever they needed. And so it felt, it was the most rewarding. It was the hardest experience, but it was the most rewarding just because, hikers, they don't have very many needs.
Right.
They're happy with whatever. So people were they were teaching us, to be more appreciative of everything.
Yeah. And I think we learned, a lot about gear too, and that was kind of a lot. We were learning about gear, and people were like, well, you did the trail, so tell us what you used, and we'd give suggestions. We said, well, this is what we used, and we like this because this worked, or we
play around with their gear too, and help them master it because we did have a lot of people that would start their section hikes there too, so they really did come with brand new in the package items. We're like, let's test the stove before we get out on the trail.
Yeah, and I think it was really cool because we basically got off the trail and we're back on the trail and relating to all these hikers.
We were able to keep that life.
And talk to them about their experiences and be like, oh, no way, you did that and you saw that? Yeah, we were there once.
It was so fresh.
And then really getting into the hostel life and starting meeting some of the people like Bob Peoples and Miss Janet, and just starting to meet some of these people and going to the trail days and meeting. And it's like, wow, we're part of this community. And the ATC is a great organization to work for. And we're so close to Harper's Ferry that we're the headquarters, and got to know some of the folks there. And so, we loved it. Again, Patrice said it wasn't a job, it was a lifestyle. It was nonstop, and it was some crazy things that would happen. People showing up at 2 a.m, pounding on your door, trying to get in, and I told
Is that typically through hikers or something else?
It was everyone.
I think that you had it was a mix.
It was a mix because Bears Den you could also drive to.
Yeah.
And we also had a campground there. So a lot of times we did have scout troops coming and doing stuff like that. We'd have people drive up that just wanted to camp and spend the night. We'd have people who were through hiking and day hiking.
The heaviest season during through hiking season, it was just packed. There were 36 bunks, I think,
in a private room. And of course, the special was everyone got, you got your bunk. You got your shower, your laundry, your Ben & Jerry's ice cream, your pizza and a soda for like $30 back then. And, you know, people love that deal.
I wonder how much it is now.
I wonder how much it is now.
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned going into the AT that, you know, you're going to go back into your careers after finishing the AT. At what point did that switch for you? Was it applying for this role? It was just like, let's see what happens, and if we don't get it, then we'll go back to our careers? Or is it like you were dead set on just shifting paths regardless?
I don't think we were dead set. I think we just kind of we just figured, let's just keep seeing what happens.
Yeah,
let's just keep living this like 6-month increment life and see what happens.
And I don't think, you know, we weren't a sure lock to get this job. We applied for it. Other people applied for it. We interviewed a couple times. You know, we weren't sure if we were going to get it. We're like, what are we going to do if we don't get this? Are we going to go back to writing and being a Parks Rec director? What are we going to do? But fortunately, you know, we got this position and we're like, this is great. Let's do this. And we love the job.
And we were planning to do it for longer. We ended up only doing it for 13 months. And it's because another opportunity sort of like landed in our lap.
Yeah. So one day Patrice was on the phone. She's like, yeah. Okay. What? Yeah. Oh, yeah, we are. Absolutely. She hung up the phone. Who was that? She goes, well, that was the marketing director for Backpacker Magazine. I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. She goes, they want us to do a nationwide speaking tour. I'm like, no. And I was like, when Backpacker calls, you're like, let's go. So
was there an application process?
So let me back it up and say, you know, it's all about who you meet, right?
Yeah.
So we had met Sherry and Randy Propster, who were the
It's called Get Out
More tour.
Mm-hmm.
We
for
met
Backpacker
them
Magazine.
on the road. They were like, we met them while we were out backpacking in Texas, and we're like, oh my goodness, we love your job. We want your job. I mean, they got paid to go around the country, give presentations about gear, and so we just kind of connected with them very quickly. Just had like a 20-minute conversation, and
maybe you talked to them once or twice, like via email or something.
We did. We kept in touch just for a couple months after that, and they knew we were at Bear's Den, and they knew that we were still interested in their job, but also interested in just living this life less ordinary, as we kept saying. And so what happened was, it was the 40th anniversary of Backpacker, and they wanted to do a second tour. So they were still running the Get Out More tour, but they wanted to launch a second gear tour. And so they needed, and this all came together like rather quickly. And so the marketing director asked Sherry and Randy, hey, do you know of anybody who doesn't have a connection to a job that can like start in like 2 months and would be ready to go?
Yeah, that are hikers, that maybe speakers, that know a little bit about the outdoors,
and gear,
know how to set up a tent, maybe, you know, something like that.
So they said, well, we met this couple. We don't know much about them. We can't really vouch for them, but this is what they're doing right now. This is their info. So we just right place, right time. Like,
we went through that interview process and we're like, oh my gosh, we love Bear's Den. This is great. But then Backpacker's like, okay, we're going to send you on the road. You're going to go all over the U.S. You're going to speak at REIs about backpacking outdoors, your experience on the Appalachian Trail, talk about gear. And we both looked at each other and like,
can't say no.
Can't say no to this. Can't say no. So, and
is it just REIs, or are you talking
at that time?
No, it was REIs. We also spoke at some Moose Jaws.
Yeah,
we spoke at that place in Idaho,
Texas. Yeah,
in Texas. So some mom and pop shops too.
For sure. They tried to do a mix.
Maybe like 2/3 REIs and 1/3 like mom and pops, like Idaho Mountain Trading. The place in Minneapolis that was so we did
Midwest Mountaineering.
Midwest Mountaineering. Yeah, we spoke at all these cool mom and pop shops too, and so
I think out of 25, I think we did like 25 stops, and I want to say like half of them were REIs and half of them were mom and pops.
Yeah.
But like, again, you know, the marketing people were putting this together quite quickly, and all these companies were signing on. So Thermarest signed on, and they're like, okay, we need Justin and Patrice in Seattle tomorrow. And we're like, what? We have to run Bear's Den. Like, we're still working this job. So, fortunately, we went out to Thermarest factory and did a tour, and they were one of the key sponsors. And
it was like Gear 101, you know, in a short period of like 2 weeks, where they're luckily, learn everything about everything.
Yeah. And luckily, we were very familiar with a lot of the gear that we had used, so we can keep it authentic. But when Phil and Ted's stroller company signed on, and we don't have kids,
right?
And we have to promote strollers. We had to come up with like an angle to think about strollers, and like
you can fit a dozen beers in each.
Exactly.
There you go. So we're putting this tour together, and like all these sponsors are jumping on, and Backpackers trying to figure out like, how are you going to get around the country? Like, we haven't got a car sponsor yet, because Randy and Sherry were sponsored by Subaru, and Subaru did not want to sponsor this tour. And luckily, a company signed on called A3 Now Nutrition Bars, and was owned by a guy named Phil Kogan. And Phil Kogan is the host of a TV show called Amazing Race. And so when Phil found out we didn't have something to drive around, Phil said, well, I've got a brand new Winnebago Sprinter van sitting in my driveway in California. You guys can take that.
As long as it's wrapped in the like
wrapped
A3.
in the A3.
Like,
Yeah, sure.
And of course, Backpacker, we weren't in charge of any of the marketing. We were just the speakers.
I can't believe Backpacker would have a tour in place without some game plan about how they're getting you around the country.
Well, that just shows you what you don't know behind the scenes.
Yeah. So they're thinking about like renting something. They were trying to get, I think, maybe Ford or Toyota or something like that. But it just
happened.
They were scrambling.
Sure.
And so then
they threw it together. It sounds like last minute.
And then we had to write the scripts, and they're throwing all this gear like Ex Officio, Big Agnes, Thermarest. I mean, in like some companies we hadn't heard of, like Phil and Ted strollers. I forget. And so
A3, like the
nutrition
bar
bars
company.
were like, well, you need to send us these bars. We need to start eating them and trying them and stuff like this. So
how many bars do you think you ate during that trip?
A ton. We're still finding them in some of our storage areas.
Do they still sell this bar? I'm not familiar.
I don't believe that they do.
Yeah. I think he has stopped. But yeah, so he gave us this brand new Sprinter Winnebago van that was unbelievable, and we drove this around the country and lived in that. And so we started doing this tour.
Randy and Sherry were so upset because they had this Subaru that they had been doing the Get Out More tour for years, and they were living out of a Subaru, and they had it very dialed in. And then these newbies come in.
They met us at Fort Collins at that mom and pop shop. Right. They met us there.
And we were like, yeah, so this is the Sprinter van. And they're like, are you kidding me? We have to keep living out of our Subaru, and you get this decked out,
we're like, oh, yeah, this is great. And
RV.
And so that was our first experience into vans, and we didn't realize that this van was $100,000 plus. At the time. Like, we didn't know much about vans, but it was... and so we did this tour. We had a great time. We enjoyed it. We did another tour for Backpacker that was partnership with Dick's Sporting Goods when Dick's was trying to release an outdoor brand, and so we did that. It didn't do as well, so we went to Dick's Sporting Goods around the U.S. and did some talks, and since then that our portion of Dick's has not worked out. But yeah, so we're driving around the country, and that's when we're like, wow, Backpacker magazine. Oh, there's so much more to it. Hey, Kristen, we had Kristen Hostetters, who was the gear editor forever with Backpacker, and she came out to one of our talks.
Yes. Well, I was going to say that, of course, like as a writer, it was my dream. I'm like, I want to write for Backpacker. And I had pitched them prior to this tour for just writing. And the marketing and writing side is very different, editorial and marketing. And so because we got in with the marketing side, it was really nice to be able to sort of segue. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is my dream to write for Backpacker magazine. And I could, like, my pitches would actually go somewhere. I knew the people, put the faces to the name. And so meanwhile, he's has no writing background, and he's thinking, I want to write about gear. I want to do this. I'm like, wait a minute. This is my career. You're hijacking my career. But it segued to meeting the right people. And so the gear editor who we met at one of our presentations, Kristen, at that time, she's no longer the gear editor, but she still works for the umbrella company. It just worked out. And so we were able to start like little bits of writing. Like we were bottom of the barrel
not even writing.
Gear testers.
We were testing and providing the feedback for the category managers. Sure. So be like, oh my God, yes, I would love to test this sleeping bag, and Elizabeth, I'll tell you all about it, or something like that, So we just started testing gear, and so eventually that tour and the contract ended. It was only a 1-year thing, and so we're like, we just started testing gear, and that turned into, well, now we need you guys to run this and run that, and
for
so
gear category managers.
And
that took years.
It took years, and and I'm not really a writer, so I had to learn a lot about this, and she was helping me a lot, and
we made like a good team because he's really good at like the technical details of gear and figuring out how it needs to be used or whatnot, and then of course I'm good at putting the words on the paper.
Yeah, so we kind of teamed up a lot on a lot of things, and wrote for Backpacker till they ceased operations.
Tell me about the transition of going from managing a hostel to living out of a van. Which one's more glamorous?
That's a really good question.
That's a good question. The van was super glamorous. Wow. The hostel, I mean, we didn't have a glamorous place where we lived. We lived in a little tiny apartment attached to the hostel. Everyone had access to us.
The work that it entailed was not glamorous either.
No.
I mean, you're cleaning
toilets. We cleaned toilets nonstop every day. Toilets and showers, making beds, doing laundry, cleaning up some nasty hikers. You know, some people who didn't want to shower and stuff. So,
did you ever get a norovirus outbreak at the hostel?
Yes.
No, no, we did not.
Not
Justin.
noro, but we had sickness, right? Didn't that one guy bring in? No, all right, maybe not.
I think you're remembering wrong.
All right.
I don't. I was gonna say we did not have any.
I remember us wiping stuff down a lot, but yeah, no. Yes. I mean, the hostel wasn't. I mean, we thought, yeah, it would be awesome, but it was a lot of cleaning.
I think what it did for us is it taught us that we actually don't want to buy our own hostel. We still enjoyed hospitality and wanted to, and we did end up doing that over time, filling in jobs where we would be managers of a place or Airbnb or whatever, bed and breakfast. And so we still enjoyed elements of it, but van life was far more fun.
Oh, it was a blast. And I mean, we had a lot of time between our stops.
Yes.
And ours was called Gear and Go Tour. So we would go to places and hike certain areas to talk about that. So we'd go to like Minneapolis and hike, and we'd meet with a local writer there, a photographer, or someone who had to do something with backpacker, and they would take us out. And so we'd say to people, you know, we just went out on this trail and brought this Osprey backpack and did this or whatever.
Whatever it was. Like, it was sort of like this tour that was built around like the local beta and being able to just tell the people that were coming to the presentations like where they can go. And
and of course we had to develop a script and come up with everything, and we wanted to keep it authentic. So luckily a lot of the gear we had used prior, and so, you know, I mean, we'd be at one store one day, it'd be a small store, and there'd be like 15, 20 people there, and be like, oh, that was nice. And then we'd show up in Seattle, there'd be 200 people. And Denver was insane all the time. And actually, Phil Kogan flew to Denver to meet with us to do a talk.
That was our last presentation.
Oh my gosh,
so
and it was insane.
Sure, let's bring him on.
Let's bring him on and let's do this. And so, and so all the stops were very different, but we got to explore the United States. And so I think it was glamorous, and we got paid to do this. I mean, not a ton, but we got paid. Yeah. And what we really got was free gear, because regardless if we're working as a medical writer or you know, Parks and Rec, I told you, we're at those REIs buying stuff. Of course, the garage sales because we want to save money. But now, you know, we get nice ex officio clothes to wear, and we get, oh wow, a big Agnes tent, and we get to keep this. This is great.
It was like our dream come true for being, you know, for being so obsessed with gear, and then all of a sudden you have it at your fingertips a little bit. And you know, so when we were living on the road for that job, and living in the van, we realized how much we love road tripping too. And we had already done a few road trips ourselves.
We were trying to climb the highest peak in every state, so we would drive around all over the U.S. and climb. So we were just trying to figure out like how to continue that life, because the backpacker job for the tour, that was a one-time thing. And so we were never going to be living on, Randy and Sherry were still continuing their tour. So, you know, we were never going to do that again. And we were trying to figure out how we do this ourselves in terms of like road tripping or having a fun time and working on the road. And that's when we sort of started to pair like hospitality and road life. And so we bought our own van, and we were doing these gigs where we would work for 3 months at a time in a place that was like a bed and breakfast or something, and we would just manage running a lodge. And then you know, we're running a lodge in Oregon, and we're both like, let's get out of here and let's go hike this trail in New Zealand that you wrote about in your journal. And so, you know, after we hiked that trail, we said, we can use all of our knowledge from Backpacker Magazine. We can run our own tour. So we ended up running our own tour after that and getting all gear companies, all the gear we used in New Zealand, all the gear companies signed on. And they sponsored us, Patrice and Justin, to do a speaking tour. And we had some relationships with folks at REI and some private stores. And so we ran our own tour.
This tour is in New Zealand or the States?
No, we did it in the States. Okay. We came back from the hike and we did another tour.
He's fast forwarding. That was in 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like, you know, in the time that we were, you know, doing the backpacker tour and then hiking, or living the van life thing and doing these different hospitality gigs. Like he said, when he came back, he's like, you know, I think it's a good idea. Like, nobody knows about this trail. I mean, we hiked it 2014 to 2015, and it was so, unknown at that time. I think there were about 50 people maybe that did it that year. Oh gosh, I have no idea how many people I think nowadays it's like 5,000.
Oh, wow.
That might be what they're having a hard time managing all the crowds, especially post pandemic.
Yeah.
And so we just wanted to like let people know what the trail was about, because it was completely different than the Appalachian Trail. And so if you're a thru hiker and you're looking for another trail off season, it's a great one, except for the fact that we just wanted people to know what they're getting into.
Yeah. What was the beta like at that point? So you hiked it in the winter of 2014?
Yes, into 15, yeah. So it was paper maps that you can get. They have a TA trust, and so that's the like kind of similar to the ATC. And so they would put out these maps that you could download, and so we just printed them out on 8x10 sheets, and that's what we were using, were these like paper maps. But they didn't have a lot of detail on them at all. So it wasn't like it is now, where you can know where you're going to camp or where the best trail town is, or where the water sources are. It was just, you're just flying blind.
Blind, and we like no idea. We'd have to backtrack a lot, and yeah, I mean, it was crazy, and there's no trail markers.
Yeah,
I mean, there's maybe like 20 the whole trail. It was crazy, and then you spend like 2 days walking through Auckland, like the biggest city, on the streets. You're like, this is crazy, and then you get to the South Island, and you don't see anybody. It was unbelievable, and we went there to be like, oh, we're thru hikers. We definitely can do this. This is going to be great. And we went there to hike, but what it became into was more of a cultural experience, and it was all about the people we met. And it was just
not other hikers.
No, the Kiwis. The Kiwis themselves. We met very few hikers. I mean, guy from Italy, a girl from Canada. It's about like very few, couple of people from Germany. But yeah, we met
one American.
Very few people through hiking. And so as we're going, like, it's just all these Kiwis that are like, what are you doing? Why do you have these ski poles, big backpacks, walking down these trails?
So they weren't familiar with the trail.
Not familiar at all. So
not at that time.
We're educating them about this trail, and they're like, wow, that's unbelievable. This trail goes right by my house. We'll stay in my backyard. Come have a cup of tea. Okay, now spend a couple days with me. All right, let's go out on my boat and go snorkeling. It was just crazy. And so it was a lot about these people we're meeting. And, Patrice is always journaling and writing all this.
I love the fact that, like, people didn't know about it. And so that's another reason why, like, we were adamant about, like, spreading that word. So when we came back from the trail, like, my goal was, let me write a few articles about it. I think I even wrote an article for the Trek about it. And so that kind of, like, was where we were thinking, okay, the speaking tour. And I guess the other thing was that in the back of my mind as a writer, I'm like, oh, could I write a book about this?
No one wrote a book about it. There's no books. And it's in...
Well, there was one book written by the guy who designed the trail from like the 90s, Jeff Chappell. And so it was, and it was dated and just, just the idea. I was like, could I do this? Could I like actually write a trail memoir?
So she'd been thinking about it, and so I'm like, let's pitch this tour. Let's try to pitch this tour. Let's see if we can get some of these companies to sign on. Let's do this whole like proposal. And all these companies, because of our relationships with Backpacker and some of the people we had met along the way, were like, oh, Justin, Patrice, yes, absolutely, we'll sign on. So we started doing this tour, and we set up this tour and we went to places we wanted to go to. So a lot of them were REIs. We did a couple breweries, we did some libraries, and
some mom and pop
shops that we had established relationships with. And as we're doing this tour, people were enamored with New Zealand and saying to her, are you going to write about this? Are you going to write a book about this? And so we're like, she's like, maybe. And so she'd been thinking about it, and she's like, I'm going to do it.
So what did you find stand out about the people and the culture in New Zealand?
Yeah, no, I think the going into the trail, we had friends from the AT, the year of 2011, who had hiked the TA before us. So they also were the pioneers on the trail, one of the 20 people. And they told us, they said, listen, you're going to find their hospitality overwhelming in the sense that you're not going to understand it. You're going to feel like threatened by it almost because they're just so nice. And the whole country only has about, I think, 4,000 people. And so it's they're spread out, and I feel like our impression at the time was when we got there and started seeing how nice people were, we realized, in America you can't really be like that because it's so crowded. You don't know what other people's angles are, but in a smaller place, like, they were able to feel safe still.
Yeah, no, the population of New Zealand, 4 million. You said 4,000.
4 million.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry, 4 million. Yes, it's not 4,000 if you out there be like, whoa, no, it's about 4 million.
But still,
with
for
most
a big
of them
country.
living in Auckland. Yeah, and so it was just like, Patrice is right. Like, it was overwhelming. People would be like, whoa, what's your angle? And especially when people found out about this trail and wanted to hear from us, tell us about it. You invite us in. We had one couple slaughter a sheep for us that night to eat dinner. We're like, are you kidding me?
Did you witness that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
What was that like?
It was crazy.
I don't think Justin enjoyed it as much as I did. I like to see where my food comes from.
Yeah.
And
They're
I was
we're going to celebrate,
Yeah.
And then, it was just unbelievable. Like, hitchhiking, off the Appalachian Trail, you can do it here and there. And there's trail communities, but hitchhiking in New Zealand's like a recommended form of travel.
Yeah.
So whenever we got off the trail and we had to get to a town to resupply or get to the hostel, take a shower or something like that, we'd hitchhike. And, it was unbelievable. We had postal workers pick us up to drive us and threw us back in the packages. We had like a tour bus pick us up once. We had a wedding party pick us up in a big van.
Yeah, they were between their wedding and reception. We're like, are you sure you want?
They're like, get in. So all these people pick us up and, of course, asking us questions. What are you doing, And, one of the first hitchhikes was just unbelievable. Like, we had just finished walking the 100-mile beach, and we got to an area, and we had to get to a town, and, like, no one was around. But I saw this, like, truck stuck in the sand, and this, like, police car trying to pull it out. I was like, I'm going to go ask this cop, like, where we can go. So I asked him, I was like, hey, we're trying to get to Kataya. Could you tell us, like, where can we, like, hitchhike, get a ride from? And he kind of gives us this look, and he's like, hitchhike? He's like, why would you hitchhike? Hop in the car. I'll take you wherever you need to go, And so we're like, wow. So, like,
is hitchhiking legal there?
Yes,
okay.
it is.
It's legal. It's recommended.
Yeah, it is. And we weren't too sure
about that.
Score
some drugs, by the way.
we weren't even sure.
Nothing's off the table in New Zealand.
We weren't sure about it. And so, like, he just drove us and just the people we met. It was just the experience. And that's what Patrice's book is a lot about, about these experiences and these people we met, and of course a lot about the trail too. But
it's not meant to be like a guidebook at all.
No. But and the tour worked out great that we did, and then she started plugging away at the book after the tour, and so.
How long were you in New Zealand for? Because it sounds like you had a lot of side quests, so you're not doing the trail as fast as.
Right. Yeah. I think so when you're over 30, you can only get a 6-month visa.
Okay.
So we could only get a 6-month visa,
Yeah.
and so the trail took us 4 months, and we. In between, after we spent a little bit of time traveling.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. Our goal was to do the trail. So once we did the trail,
but we played tourists.
We did play tourists. Yeah. Like, at one stop, we got this lady on this park bench was asking us what we're doing, and I'm like, well, we're hiking this trail. She's like, where do you stay? I was like, in the tent in my bag, but we're gonna stay at a hostel in Hamilton here. And she's like, no, you're coming home with us. And so her and her husband and little baby took us home, and they put us up in their house, and we did laundry, took showers, fed us, and they were telling us all these stories. The next morning she's like, listen, I did something, I hope this is okay, but I want you guys to go see this place. Can you take this day off? We're like, I guess. Sure. What is it? She's like, it's called Hobbiton. It's where the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies were filmed. We're like, yeah, let's go. So we did stuff like that, and she drove us there. It was really cool. So it was all these people
treated
we
it
met.
like a vacation then, and we were like, when we could take off, we will.
Yeah. But we completed it, and we felt good about it, and it was
You've heard a lot about it.
Opposite of AT or anything like that. Yeah.
So fill me on the gap, because you finished in our spring of 2015, is that right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
And then you did the van tour in 17?
Yes.
What's happening in that couple-year gap?
So we just still owned our own van, and so we were kind of living on the road a little bit just for play, but also doing some hospitality gigs. So during that time, we were on a private island off of the coast of Massachusetts. It's privately owned by 12 families, and all they needed people to live there during the off season to walk around the island. Our whole job was to walk around the island once a day. It was 55 acres, I think, and just make sure that no doors or windows had opened, or that nobody was trying to get on the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one of our gigs.
You're the
Caretaker.
island guard.
Island guard, yeah.
And it was haunted.
Yeah.
And
How do you fall into that? That's not like a Craigslist job.
No.
Yeah.
This is cool.
One of our best resources for most of the care taking jobs that we've had, or the hospitality jobs, it's called Caretaker's Gazette. And it was a subscription-based, it still exists, it's a subscription-based newsletter that you subscribe to. And so, like, people will put ads in there, and they vary from, I need a dog sitter for a week in Golden, Colorado, and it's unpaid. You're just going to be staying at my place and watching my dog. To, I need a butler to travel with me 6 months out of the year and help me with my kids. And also then the other 6 months of the year, we're going to be at my mansion in, I don't know, Yellowstone.
Yeah, and you get paid $100,000 or something.
Right.
Or I need you to watch my cattle farm. Yeah. Or,
So the range of jobs it's entertaining, actually.
It is. I mean, that's how we got that. We got a job in Eastern Oregon running a teepee village, doing that at Caretaker Gazette.
We were up in Northern Maine for a bit.
Was doing some things.
Yeah.
And then I don't think, so then we did the Jemez Mountains in New Mexico. We didn't find that on Caretaker.
Yes.
We made a connection, and we ran a retreat in there for a private school out of Albuquerque.
But it was like a similar situation where, like, so it was this private retreat center north of Albuquerque, and so we were taking care of the property, but we were also, like, the kids would come up for, I don't know, 4 weeks out of the year in spring and fall, and for their environmental education. So we did like a combination of jobs there, where we were the property caretakers, but then we were also the environmental educators when the kids came up.
Yeah, but I think
that gig was from 2016 until 2018.
Yeah,
so
and that gig was. So when we were on the TA, we actually applied for Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics.
To be the traveling trainers.
To be the traveling trainers.
Because
we are so...
You guys have found your niche traveling.
Yeah, we're so awesome. We've done Backpacker magazine. We've Thru-Hike. We've done all these great things. We're a perfect fit for this. And so we applied for it as we were in New Zealand and sent in our videos and all application. And we did not get the job. Huh. We did not get the job. Devastated.
Did you find out who did?
Yeah,
probably.
I think so. Over the year. Yeah,
I think we did. Because we eventually did get the job. But
it took years. We applied for like 5 years.
Yeah. And I think that was maybe the second or third time we applied. And we're like, man, why are we not being picked for this? And we were master educators. And so then we went into the Jemez Mountains and we ran this. And then we're like, just to like, it's a confusing trajectory of jobs. But when we were at the retreat center in the Jemez Mountains, we did this like side tour for the speaking tour. It was only for 3 months that we lived on the road to do that, TA speaking tour. Yeah. And we were going to go out in our van. And our van was like a 1995 Chevy van that looked pretty terrible. And this company called Superfeet's like, no, you're going to take our van.
We got a van.
So we got another van. So we got this brand new Superfeet van that they built out, and we drove their van around, which was great. And we kind of...
How's that compared to the A3 van?
No, it was like less. It was
less, but it was good.
It was good. It was more minimalist.
Yes.
But it was a great... it was great size, like just enough features, but nothing like fancy. Nothing fancy. Like the A3 van.
Yeah, and our van was very old and beat up. So and so then we sold that van, and we ended up buying another van after the the Superfeet van. But and so we did the Jemez Mountains, and we did this tour, and then eventually.
We got the job with Leave No Trace.
We got the job with Leave No Trace, and we did that for 3 years, where we traveled all over the U.S. and did environmental education with a great team of other educators on the road, and drove our Subaru all over. I mean, we were trying to count the other day. I think we've driven across the U.S. like 30 or 40 times. Wow. We don't even know.
Yeah. I imagine, is it more rewarding to travel the country doing that sort of education as opposed to like selling other people's gear? Yeah,
for sure. That dream job of working for Leave No Trace was truly that dream job for us. Like, we enjoyed that aspect of being able to like spread the word of awareness of like being Leaving No Trace and everything. So it was rewarding, but like I feel like we also enjoyed the gear tour too. Sure.
We did.
Anytime you can get paid to live on the road.
Yeah, no. From your perspective, it's a dream job.
And I think we really enjoyed our gear tour because it was like 100% authentic. Every
Yes.
company that joined us, we had used their gear.
Except for the stroller.
No, I'm talking about the
you
New
mean
Zealand
our
tour.
own New Zealand.
The New Zealand tour. We had used all that gear either on the AT or on the TA. And so when we came back, we specifically reached out to Gregory Backpacks and I'm trying to think who else was on, like
Big Agnes, and Thermarest,
and Backpackers Pantry and stuff, and all our stories were authentic. So we had all the pictures of all this gear from the trail. So
and that speaking tour was less focused on. I mean, the companies felt like they were getting something out of it because we were talking about gear, but we were trying to educate people about the
New
trail.
Zealand.
Yeah.
But most people would.
And you can integrate
Sure.
both of those.
But a lot of times people would come to the backpacker tour, whether it was ours or Randy or Sherry's, or to our New Zealand tour because, of course, at the end it says free gear raffle, and you're getting all this gear. Yes, a lot of people like to hear about New Zealand too, but also people love free gear, so we're giving away a tent and a backpack and all this stuff, and people love
feels
that.
nice to be Santa Claus.
It feels nice to be.
You know.
So I got to imagine there's former thru-hikers listening to this that are curious how you go about pitching a thru-hike to brands to turn it into a national tour.
Right. I want to say that maybe those days are over. I don't know. I feel like companies have a lot of influencers now, right? And they have ambassadors. And so
it's more cost efficient just to
yes
pay for someone's Instagram influence than send them around the country.
And I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But I do feel like we got on that boat so early. That's how we were. It's just about timing. Lucky.
Yeah.
So I don't have any good tips.
No, and I mean, right now we do speaking events still from Alaska from our little cabin, but they're all remote.
Yeah, it's nothing about gear.
Nothing about gear. We talk
about Alaska.
Talk about Alaska. We used to talk about New Zealand. We do tours, but and then we especially did that during the pandemic, where people couldn't go out, where she couldn't do a national book tour because there's a pandemic. You know.
Yeah.
So we do these from our little cabin in Alaska now.
I'm so fascinated by this chapter of Alaska life. So you moved to a dry cabin, 300 square feet. I guess being in a van is probably good training for living in small confines, but
I mean, the tent, the tent van was bigger than a tent, and then the cabin's bigger than the van.
Right. Yeah. I guess
our cabin's a little bit bigger than this room.
Okay.
No, it's
maybe
a little.
Yeah. Bigger,
yeah. I wouldn't call this a spacious room as far as offices are concerned, at least. Yeah, so walk me through what's the decision to go here? How do you pick the particular place? Like the full story.
So
that is a story. Yeah. I can tell this story. I want to
start with 2002.
Yeah. Right. So again, we were dating in 2002, and Justin was getting his master's, and he had to do this where he kind of like an internship where he had to do research for his master's thesis. And so he turned to me like after 3 months dating. He's like, "Oh, I think I'm going to go to Alaska to go do my research." I'm like, "Okay. I mean, thanks for leaving me." And he didn't know anything about it, and that was kind of like early internet days. So like he didn't know what he was getting into. Fast forward, he spent his summer in Alaska doing research for Denali National Park in a backcountry lodge in the park, and worked as a naturalist guide up there, and fell in love with Alaska, which is what happens to people.
Yeah.
And he called me and said, "Hey, I found a piece of land I want to buy." And I'm like, "No, are you kidding me? We were just merely dating, broke college students."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm not buying land in Alaska with you." And he couldn't do it really on his own. So he kind of like buried his dream, but it stuck. Over the years, we had gone back to Alaska. He went back there to work another summer. He went back there for play and climbing and whatever. Like we went back for vacation, and he just never got Alaska out of his blood. And I was still coming to terms with it. Like I loved bouncing around. Like we had lived in, over like about a dozen different states with those caretaking jobs. And it was really fun to experience a different state every couple months and then be able to like say that you've really lived in America. And I was getting tired of the nomadic lifestyle. So I was kind of saying to him, like, I do want to settle down. We were kind of looking at land in Colorado, actually, because family here, and just kind of thinking like about having like a base camp instead of just having the van as like going from the van to our next property caretaking gig. But we when we were applying for Leave No Trace, and when we finally got the Leave No Trace job, they had a special project that they had hired us for, and it was to be called the Zero Landfill Team, going to 3 specific national parks that were trying to become zero landfill. And one of those national parks was Denali National Park. And so we were hired, it was like, again, a dream job. We were hired to go from Grand Tetons to Denali to Yosemite. So we made that loop. And spend like a month in each park educating people about zero landfill.
So we're up in Alaska
for 2018 for that summer.
Yeah,
and then
we rented a place.
Again in 2019, we were up there.
And where we live right at the outskirts of Denali National Park in a little tiny community called Healy. And when I say tiny, I mean we don't have realtors. We just got street names like last year. We don't have anything around. We have a bar, grocery store, and
gas stations.
So do you get mail?
So we have a post office box.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a post office and we get that, but we don't really get like UPS or FedEx. So it's a very small town, and so
we were there working.
And I'm like I would love to buy a place here. And she was we had our van, and she's like, I'm really done with this van. And the van actually was sitting in Brighton, Colorado, because we had Subaru Leave No Trace was sponsored by it. So our van's been in storage years here, and she's like,
I think I'm ready.
And I'm like, well, we got to go to Talkeetna because that's like the closest place, and that they have realtors, and we could buy something there. So we got a realtor. We started looking around. It was really expensive. But then in Denali, all of a sudden, one day, a park ranger left, and our friend knew this park ranger and called us and said, so-and-so has just resigned from her job. She owns that little tiny cabin up on the road over there that you guys always walk by. So we ran over and knocked on her door and said, we're really interested in your cabin. She's like, who are you? We're like, well, Justin, Patrice, we're the Leave No Trace people in the car. She's like, oh, yes, I know who you are. We're really interested. And she's like, well, I just resigned today. I literally don't know what I'm doing. She owned a house in Palmer that was a big house that she had to sell that she was more concerned about. We're like, well, we're really interested in this. And she's like, all right, let me think about it. And I think
the next day she got back to us. She's like, okay, so here's my price. She said you have 24 hours to decide.
I'll put on Facebook.
Yeah, because that's how they list things.
Yeah.
In
Facebook Marketplace.
Yes.
Facebook, yeah.
That's amazing.
The Healy page.
So we're like, okay. So we're like, well, what do we do? Like, if you buy a house, don't you have to get a home inspection and stuff? So we asked a friend, and they're like, no, they come from Fairbanks. It's like $5,000. You don't need
a home inspection.
I looked at this cabin. It's fantastic. If you don't buy it, I'll buy it. And so we ended up okay.
It was kind of like one of those sight unseen type of things. Like we were didn't know what we were getting into, but we're like, I think we could swing this. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And it wasn't the first home that we had owned in our lives, so we were not too worried.
We weren't too worried. So we bought it. We can't get mortgages there because it's a
dry cabin.
Dry cabin. So we live in a dry cabin. We don't have running water. We go to an outhouse even when it's -40 out.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you want to revisit that.
You can't get a mortgage on it?
Can't get
because it doesn't have a septic.
Running water, and electricity is what you need to get a proper mortgage.
We have electricity, but they will not. The bank. So what we ended up having to do was just get a personal loan for part of the. We paid cash for some, and then a personal loan at 9%.
Yeah.
And
no choice.
Yeah, right.
Because literally, she's like, "You have 24 hours." We're like, "Okay, we want it. We need it. Yes."
Yeah.
Huh.
And so
And that was 2019.
So we bought it, and the next day, 3 days later, we had to go to Yosemite or something like that.
Yeah, we were still working
for Leave No Trace. And we're like, okay, so then we're like, we'll just rent it out. And then this pandemic hit, and everything got cut. So Leave No Trace, there's no more traveling going around the country. The program's cut, this and that. Well, what are we going to do? So we went and got our van for Brighton, Colorado, drove up, and
moved in. Settled in.
It's good timing from that standpoint.
It was.
At what point do you want to be moving to an isolated cabin during a pandemic?
So we tell people that we feel that Alaska was the best place in the world to ride out a pandemic.
Sure.
I mean, we live in the middle of nowhere. We have no neighbors.
Right.
The outdoors is we're outside all the time. I mean, our skis and snowshoes at our front door. We hike right to the park from our backyard. It was a great place. And, of course, if we went to Fairbanks, the big city, we'd throw on a mask and go shopping. But we thought it was a fantastic place.
Yeah. It worked out to, get out of van life and get out of that nomadic life right before it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it like not having running water?
Yeah. So it's very much like camping.
It is.
I mean, it's more like glamping, actually.
Yeah.
And that was our first experience in a dry cabin.
No,
actually.
we rented one prior to that. We
Right.
rented a
Yeah.
cabin,
I mean, and also just all the times that we lived out of our vehicle. But, you know,
because I must say, in the 4 vans we owned, we tried to never do
Have
number 2 in our vans. Especially Phil's like, you can't do that in my van. And then our van, we're like, well, we're not going to do that if we couldn't do it in his. And then when Superfee built the van, we did not have a toilet. And then we bought another van that had a toilet, and we're like, we're just not going to use it. Like, that's like something you shouldn't do. So we would literally use Walmart rest areas and go to the bathroom.
Sure.
So it wasn't
that much different. Like I think that there's this learning curve. There's a lot of learning curves to life in Alaska, especially in a remote area. Now we're on the road system, so that's not a problem. We have electricity, so that's not a problem. But we would fill jugs, like just big 5-gallon jugs of water, and you know, we'd like have them filled and just learn how to do like the bucket system, like when you're washing dishes, and so things like that. And then we had this weird I don't know how to explain it, but it's this fire.
So yeah, it looks like a
hydrant.
huge fire extinguisher. It's made of metal. It holds 3 gallons of water. We put it on the stove for 19 minutes, and it's pressurized, and it's got a hose coming out of it, and that's how we take a shower in a big silver bin, kind of like you see like the old people taking.
Yeah,
and
just out in front of your house.
No, we would do it inside.
Do it inside.
Winter.
Winter.
Sure,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then yes, we have an outhouse that we go to an outhouse and go to the bathroom.
Now we have since upgraded our cabin, and we call it moist now.
Okay.
Because we do have a well on the property, and that's the reason that most people in this community have dry cabins is because nobody has like a city water line or a city sewer line or anything. You do that yourself. It's digging a well. Our well is 265 feet deep, so it's very expensive
But we didn't buy this well. It was mysteriously on the property, and the woman said it didn't work.
Huh.
And it was just
She was selling a
corner.
dry cabin. We're like, what's that? She's like,
Broken well.
it's a broken well. It worked.
What causes a well to break?
A lot of things actually. Like the
cold.
The because of the cold, the components can and if the water table moves too.
Yeah.
So it was dug at 265 feet, but if like the water table were to go down or change, then you might not get the right, water pressure or whatever. I mean, again,
so for years, I mean, we just had the well and we just go get water from that. But then, a couple of years ago, he's like, well, let's try to hook it up. So we brought some pipes into the house. This is why she calls it moist. So we do have a sink, and we do have like a shower head. But we can only really use that like 6-ish months of the year, because winter comes, September and goes through like early June, late May.
Things freeze. We don't drain in the winter. We can drain in the summer. We built like a gray water type of drain. But in the wintertime, we don't drain. So, and we still will never upgrade to get septic.
No.
Because that's a whole other complication in Alaska.
Yeah, and a lot of people in this
freezing.
community, so we're not strange, a lot of people in the community don't have water.
That's what I was saying.
I'd say over 50% of the people don't have running water. So because it costs a lot to dig the well, then it costs a lot to run heat tape around all your pipes, and then your electric bill's going up. And then when it's negative 30 and 40 degrees, your pipes still freeze and break, and you have problems. And then you can never go away. You can't go on vacation. So like right now, Patrice and I, we're kind of like the go-to in the community. If people are going on vacation, can you come watch my dogs, my cats, my bunnies? Also, could you flush my toilet, run my dishwasher, do this?
Take a lot of showers, do wash. We're like, yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And
it's a win-win situation.
It is win-win. So, yeah.
How do you manage the outhouse? Are you doing that yourself? Is there like a neighborhood guy that'll come and stir it? And
No. So in the summer when it's warm, obviously it's all liquidish down there. In the winter, we call it the Tower of Poo. And it just builds up, and it's a tower. And I have a metal rod where you have to knock the tower down, because obviously it freezes immediately when you go. A poopsicle coming out and hitting you. And a lot of people do it differently.
It's pretty deep.
You can dig an outhouse like into the earth, and go there. What we chose to do is we have a 55-gallon drum, and then we go in that. And personally for us, we emptied it every maybe like year and a half or something like that. And there's a septic company that comes and will suck it out.
Okay.
But in the winter we have to manage it ourselves, and it's not too bad. I mean, we have another.
How stinky is it knocking down the poopsicle?
No, it's all frozen.
It's frozen.
Okay.
Solid.
So nothing
stinks.
smells.
Okay.
Yeah.
There are no smells.
No smells. In the summer, yes. But, I mean, where we live, it typically never gets above 80 degrees in the summer. I mean, it's above 80.
If it does, then it's like,
I hear it too, but I don't think it picks up. It might actually be the cell phone on the table. Sometimes that can interfere with... Nope. Anyways.
Okay.
There we go. It died.
Cool.
You mentioned that there's a bar in town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a local bar.
Is it pretty popular?
It is. And so where we live outside of Denali National Park. And Denali National Park is a huge tourist attraction in the summer. Have you been?
No, but I'm aware.
Okay,
obviously.
yeah. It's a huge tourist attraction. So from May 15th to September 15th, there are a lot of things open. There's a Holland America Lodge and a Princess Lodge. A lot of cruise ship passengers are being trained and bused there. So from May 15th to September 15th, there's a lot of things open. There are restaurants. There are stores. The national park is open. There are huge hotels. But come September 15th, everything shuts down. When I mean everything, we board up all the hotels, all the buildings. We turn off the 2 traffic lights. We turn off the gas pump, and the canyon becomes a ghost town. Gets buried in snow, and then come, May, June, we're trying to dig it out to get it ready for the tourist season. In our town of Healy, we do have a couple things that are open year round. There are some of those seasonal places like that aren't open, but we do have, a grocery store as well as a bar and a gas station.
So Healy is one community of Denali Borough, which includes like 100-mile stretch on the highway. And so there's several like small communities. And Healy has about, for year round, I think about like 600 people that live there year round. And so it's not as it's not as desolate as you think, because it is on the main highway that goes from Anchorage to Fairbanks.
The one road.
Yeah, the one.
Yeah.
There's not.
And so the local bar, it's great. It's all locals. Is where everyone knows your name.
Sure.
And everyone's there, and our community's so tight that everybody knows each other, and we all kind of look out for each other. I feel like we step back in time there. It's like 20 years. I mean, we don't lock our doors. We don't lock our cars. We leave them running. We all look out for each other. If you're going up to town, or Fairbanks we call it, which is 2 hours, that's where we do all our shopping, and you need something, you just put a note up. Hey, can you pick up my prescription at the store? Could you get me this thing at Home Depot? I need this. Or does someone have a tool? Like a couple years ago, we had to move an outhouse. I put a note out. Can someone come help us move an outhouse? Everyone showed up and we moved an outhouse. So it's really nice that we kind of all look out for each other, and especially in the winter. I mean, it's dark, it's cold.
I was going to ask about that. How is it challenging, depressing to be in so much darkness? Because I feel it here in Colorado.
Right.
I don't know how many latitudes south I am.
Yeah, so we're at like the 64th, I think.
Yeah,
I think you're maybe at like 47th, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe even lower. And our first winter was 2019, and that was our first winter in Alaska. And it was exciting. It was super exciting. Everything was new. It was beautiful, because it is really pretty. It wasn't until like that pandemic year, when we spent a second winter, that I started to realize, oh wow, this seasonal depression thing is a real thing.
Yeah.
It's not the cold.
Right.
The cold is fine. Negative 30, 40, 20, who cares?
Yeah.
It's the darkness.
Right. And so like at the height of, so right now, like we're returning to Alaska. We'll be returning to Alaska in December. Not sure when this is going to be on, but
I think December, end of December. Yeah.
So at the height of the winter, say winter solstice, our daylight hours in the community that we live in, the sun comes up around 10:30-ish and goes down around 2:30-ish. So it's a really short period of time for you to go outside and be in what's dusk-ish, sort of.
Yeah, because where we live exactly, we don't see the flaming ball of sun for about 70 days. Now that's not to say we could drive 20 miles north or south and try to catch it, but we just have a mountain range that blocks it from our cabin. So late January, when the sun hits for like 1 minute, we're out there celebrating like it's Christmas.
Like, it's like you see your, all of a sudden you see the sun shining in the window. You're like, oh my God, the sun's back.
Yeah, yeah.
It poked over the mountains.
You go get naked in negative 40-degree temperatures just to absorb as much.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, I think people deal with the darkness in different ways. For us, I think the challenge is that we both work so many different jobs that are mostly seasonal, mostly in the summer. And the only thing we do in the winter is freelance writing. And so that you're making your own schedule. And we are for sure sleeping way more in the wintertime.
Yeah, I can only
imagine.
And
just like lazier. Like we like to say, yes, our skis and our snowshoes are at the front door, but you only have less than 5 hours where you can just plan to go outside and it's cold,
Right.
so you're not out there for all 5 hours.
Our threshold's like negative 20-ish. Like
Mine's negative 10.
15 or something.
Let's
Yeah,
be
like if it's colder
fair.
than that, we won't go out. Right?
Yeah, what's your average winter day?
Oh, it's mostly always below zero.
Damn.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Does it feel like you're in summer when you come here?
Oh my
then?
God, this is beautiful. We went hiking yesterday over here on Table Mountain, and it was like, yeah, this is beautiful. It's like summer. Yeah.
It is. I mean, you really obviously you start to appreciate some of those things like sunlight.
Yeah, sure.
And
And that's why we come down here. We
Yes.
call, and so in November, Patrice says it's kind of the toughest time. So November for a couple weeks, we come down to the lower 48 and we do what we call the Hello Goodbye Tour, and we go visit our families that live on the East Coast, or my family's in Denver here, and we kind of visit with them, and it gets us out of that darkness for a little bit.
because that's when we're losing light.
Yeah.
And it's significant. At
6
this point
minutes.
in the year, like November, December, we lose 6 minutes a day. And so you could just really notice it, especially when
Yeah.
it's like the sun is coming up after you've been awake.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's hard because, as I said, we have this atypical lifestyle. We don't have a 9-to-5 job. We're not going to the grocery store to work. We're waking up and being like, oh, okay, do I have an article to write? Who am I writing for today? Or am I pitching?
Yeah.
Or, oh, I don't have anything to do. So let's.
What are we doing today? Like, how do you motivate yourself?
Yeah.
Obviously, I know cabin fever is a real thing. I would imagine that phenomenon is even more likely when it's dark and negative temperatures. Like, how do you guys prevent from going insane given those circumstances?
Well, I think that we're fairly social people. So I remember when we first moved to Alaska, we asked our friends there and that all had already been living in the community. We're like, oh, does everybody get together? And they're like, no. People just kind of hibernate. And we're like, okay, that's not going to be us. We need social interaction, especially just to get some space from each other even occasionally. So we'll try to do whatever that means, like go out with for a ski with our neighbor, or go over to somebody else's house, or go to that local bar. We're not bar people, but
No, we aren't.
we'll
go there.
occasionally go just because it's something to do.
Well, and it's crazy. Like when we go, they'll be like, "Oh my God, Justin and Patrice are here!" Like, and like bartenders will be like, "What are you guys doing?" It's so
because
good to see you.
most people do go
Yeah.
to the bar a lot in the
Sure.
winter.
I would imagine.
And also because we live in such a seasonal community that a lot of people are working so hard in the summertime and then just really hibernating like the bears in the wintertime. So
Yeah.
you don't have a lot of people aren't working.
Yeah.
And so, it's just like there's nothing to do. But cabin fever is something that we continue to sort of reassess every year. And so like Justin said, we try to travel a little bit. Like we'll make sure that we do something, and maybe we'll break up our winter even more by one of us will go away separately from each other in like the midwinter, like January, February or something, just to kind of like keep it real. I mean,
Yeah.
make sure that we're like getting that space.
Yeah. You mentioned that you have electricity and obviously internet. Is the internet good?
It is.
Now
yeah.
it is that we got Starlink.
Starlink, I was going to ask. Okay. Yeah.
We have always had cell service. So
Yeah.
for the first couple of years that we lived there, we just used our hotspot because cell service was so good. And then we eventually were like, we need more, speed.
Yeah, and we only have
Yeah.
one tower, so in the summer everyone's using it, so it's very hard in the summer.
Yes.
But yeah, now Starlink's been a savior.
Yes.
We have that. Yeah.
Are you guys TV consumers?
We are streamers. Like, so
Streamers?
Yeah.
we'll watch like at night.
We'll binge a show or something like that on Netflix or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's been the thing getting you through this winter?
man.
Oh my gosh, we have an obsession with
It's terrible. Everyone's gonna hate it. It's called Below Deck.
I'm not familiar.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
good,
it's
John.
on Peacock. It's about work. It's
a
about
reality show.
hospitality. So it's about like working on a boat, like the super yachts. Though.
Yeah,
so
luxury
like for
yachts, yeah.
luxury yachts, and being the people that are like cleaning or behind the scenes, and it's about their drama.
It's like the real world. Remember
Sure.
Real World? It's the
Yeah,
real
totally.
world.
Yeah, yeah.
It's terrible. Yeah. So we were watching that. But yeah, we binge series.
yeah.
And yeah, we just try to get out. I mean, we also own a yurt. It's near us, so we'll go check on our yurt every so often. And we can't
You're
drive to it.
Airbnb-ing it out,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well,
Not
not in
in
the
the
winter.
winter.
Yeah.
Not in the winter, because we don't have winter tourism in Denali. Because again, remember, none of those hotels are open, none of those restaurants. So the national park is open 365 days a year. but it's not maintained. So we go in there and we ski and snowshoe. The only people we see are locals around or people from
the community
Fairbanks.
would love winter tourism, but there's just not an infrastructure. I mean, people come and they're just a tad disappointed because there's not restaurants open or they have to be more self-sufficient. There are certainly places they can stay.
There's some Airbnbs and stuff.
And a few hotels that actually do stay open. But, you know, there's winter tourism is just like there's a 5-hour day that you can play with, you know, so it's a little hard to bring people in.
So when we finally drove our van and left Colorado and brought it up there and it sat in our driveway at our cabin, Patrice was like, I think I'm done with van life. And I'm like, really? I don't want to sell our van. So we ended up selling our van and we ended up buying a yurt. And it was really twofold because our cabin is about the size of this room. So we can't have friends over or visitors or anyone spend the night, you know. So we needed another property. So we bought a yurt, and it's not a yurt that you're thinking like a Mongolian yurt with like the cloth. It's actually a hard-sided yurt. It has insulation in the walls, but it is hard to get to. You can get to it in the summer, in the spring, in the fall, but not in the winter. So we can only ski or snowshoe to it in the winter. And we don't open it in the winter because, again, not a lot of winter tourism. It'd be really expensive to heat it, and we probably wouldn't make money on it. But in the summer, it is booked, and it's the only yurt in Healy that's available, and it's very affordable. But again, it's dry, so you need to go to the outhouse. But a lot of people love this, and they'll write in the journal, I had my Alaskan experience. I had the moose come up to the window and look at me, and then I went out to the outhouse, and I did my business, and I could see maybe stars or northern lights if they come more in the off season, like August and September, or like I went to the bathroom at 1 a.m. and it was bright sunlight out and I didn't need to. So people,
I make it very clear in the listing that it's rustic, you know, and so actually a lot of the people who have rented it, their feedback, we've been renting it now for 3 summers, and a lot of feedback has been like, oh, it's better than I expected. Because I think like if you set the expectations low, you know, and I think that again, like Justin said, you know, it's just like glamping because it is dry, you have the outhouse, but you still have like it's nice enough that like it feels like you're in a nice cozy space.
And again, about like our community being a dry community, there's other dry communities too, like in Cantwell and Inanna, north and south of us, and we all have a gas station. And at our gas station, there are showers and laundry. So we go there and do that sometimes.
In the winters.
But also our guests can do that. So they know that if they want to take a shower. But most guests stay 2 days, and then they'll move on to some other location and stay in a nice hotel in Fairbanks or in Anchorage or something like that.
We had friends from New Jersey visit this summer, and she has 2 kids, and she was just so excited about letting her kids go shower at the gas station.
That is. Yeah. How is the shower at the gas station?
They're fine.
It's fine.
They're fine.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we're hikers, so maybe our standards are a little lower than like our friends in New Jersey were like,
It's fine for us. It's hot water. It runs great and it's long.
Yeah.
So,
have you guys done Denali Peak?
Oh,
that's not for me. So we're big state high pointers, but Denali is 20,310
feet.
I know it's
That's
very
a little high for
deadly
me.
as well.
Yes.
A little high for me.
So when I went up there in 2002 and 3 and did this research and I saw this mountain, I was like, this thing is unbelievable. This mountain is this is crazy. And a lot of people get to see it because it creates its own weather system. So if you come to Denali for 5 days, if you see it once, you're very lucky. But a lot of times we don't see it. We see it more in the winter. But when I came up and I saw this mountain and I was working the backcountry and I was a guide and I didn't know anything about Alaska. I didn't even know where Alaska was. I said, this mountain's unbelievable. And in my mind, I said, someday I'm going to go climb that mountain. But I didn't know what a crampon was or an ice axe or a rope. I've never climbed anything in my life. So, you know, hills in New Jersey or something like that. But I was like, this is crazy. I want to climb this. And so I went back down to lower 48, started climbing, with some companies and did some crevasse rescue courses, went and climbed Rainier and Mount Hood and all these other places and in the North Cascades and did all of this. And I was like, I really want to climb this mountain. And Patrice was very supportive of me. And she's like, you know, it's a dream of yours to do this. I think you should do it someday. And I was like, I really want to. And so in 2016, I made an attempt to climb Denali, but it was, I didn't make it. I turned back at about 300 feet from the top after 23 days.
Ooh.
And
that's tough.
It's tough, but you know, the mountains are always going to be there. The hardest part is coming down. It's fairly certain I can make it up.
It was a bad weather system or
it was a long day. I mean, we spent
11 days
at about 14,000 feet in our tent, battling a storm and just like trying to it was horrific.
So that mental game.
Yeah,
that
it was mental.
Totally.
Yeah, it's mental.
I couldn't imagine being in the tent for 11 days.
Yeah, I mean, very mental. Climbing Everest, climbing Katahdin, climbing Springer. I mean, it's doing the Appalachian Trail. It's very mental, and that's what we said to people at the hostel who wanted to give up all of the time. It'd be like, you got one more step, you can do it a little more. Mm-hmm. It's a mental game. Put that foot in front of it. Just keep walking. So yeah, Denali is very mental.
Yeah.
Is it a difficult climb? Yeah, it's harder than Everest to climb for two reasons. You're not allowed to hire any support, so you carry everything on your own. There's no Sherpas, there's no porters. My backpack's 60 pounds. I pull a sled that's 100 pounds behind me. I weigh 160 pounds, so I'm pulling all my weight trying to get up there. And and
also the elevation. Because
the elevation. So, it's more vertical than Everest. So what's funny is a lot of times people, Everest season ends, in May. And Denali season starts in May and only goes from like May till July 15th. That's like the window to climb. So sometimes people come straight from Everest to Denali and climb there. And then I've seen people up there. I've tried it twice actually and haven't. I mean, it's still on my bucket list to do. It's very much a mental game. Someday maybe I'll get up there.
So are most people that are climbing this pulling 100-pound sleds?
Yeah. I mean, most people, you're climbing in teams. You're not really soloing this mountain. You're climbing, you need to climb with 3 or more people. Have I seen people solo on there? Yes, I have, and going fast and light and maybe trying to do a speed record or something like that. But yeah, most of the time you're pulling a sled. You're pulling a sled to anywhere from 17 to... No, let me take that back. You're pulling your sled anywhere from like 11 to 14,000 feet, and then you do dump your sled and you bury it.
Well, I guess we should clarify that you start at 7,000 feet.
Yeah, so you start at 7.
The base camp.
Yeah. And, in climbing Denali is very different. As I said, you don't have porters or Sherpas, so you're climbing this mountain twice. So you climb up to whatever, let's say 8,000, 9,000 feet. You set up your camp. And the next day, you try to climb a little higher, and you carry everything that you don't need for a couple days up there, and you bury it. Then you come all the way back down to your camp, and you go to sleep. Next day, you pack up everything at your camp, and you're shuttling stuff up and down the mountain and burying it, and then trying to get to your stuff. So that's a lot of the work, is going back and forth and shuttling the stuff.
Interesting.
And it was a very rewarding experience. I loved it. I would love to try it one more time. It's really hard to do because, as Patrice said, we work in the summer. That's where we make our money. And for me to take a month off during the summer, I don't get vacation pay from guiding or anything like that. So, it's hard for us.
Is that how long it takes? A month?
It takes anywhere from 15 to 25 days to get to the top for a normal expedition. 15 days would be smooth sailing. 25 would be rough. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the minute you land on the mountain, it's nothing but white. You don't see any colors. There's no smells. I mean, you see colors of people's tents and stuff like that. There's really no vegetation. There's no rocks. There's a couple rocks up at 14,000 feet, like at Windy Corner, but mostly it's just all white. And it's very much a mental game of just trying to plug away, climb, set up camp, beat the storms.
So I know in Everest you're doing like ladders across crevasses and stuff like that. Is Denali technical to that extent?
No ladders on Denali. So there's ladders on Mount Rainier that you cross and stuff like that, but on Denali you go around crevasses.
Okay.
No one's carrying ladders up there.
Yeah.
And so that's why the season is usually from May until about July 15th, because after July 15th the crevasses open up so much that you're spending a day or two trying to walk around these crevasses. So typically everyone's off the mountain by July 15th. And, Denali typically has about 1,000 people a year climb it. It usually has about a 50% success rate.
Oh, wow. That's higher than I would have guessed. But I obviously
but it's also a very safe mountain, because here's the thing. If you have $100,000, you can go climb Everest tomorrow.
Yeah.
No problem.
Right.
But with Denali, it's really...
They vet you.
Most people that are on the mountain know what they're doing. You have to submit an application to the Park Service down in Talkeetna. They kind of go through it. If you're going with guides, they obviously have vetted you out. But most people on Denali know what they're doing. So Denali is a fairly safe mountain. Typically 2 or 3 people die a year on Denali. You're not stepping over bodies or anything like that. And usually it's health related, something going on. Yes, there are some falls here and there that happen, but it's pretty much a safe mountain.
Yeah. What's it like trying to breathe at 20,000?
Well, see, that's the thing. I struggle here.
Yeah.
What are we at? 7,000?
We're a little shy of 6 here.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think some people have issues with altitude, whereas he doesn't really start to have an issue until like 17,000. And so the breathing is one thing, but it's the effects of the altitude on like your stomach, your brain. You're just like more sluggish. I would say that you didn't have any issues breathing.
Didn't have any issues breathing at all. And you don't need oxygen. You only need oxygen starting at about 23,000 feet. So of the 7 summits, Everest is the only place you really need oxygen. So you don't need oxygen on Denali. I don't think I really felt it till like 18,000 feet-ish or something like that. But I meant when I was climbing, I was also very sick because I have Crohn's disease. And so what really kind of threw us for a loop is that
the mental part.
The mental part of me, about 2 weeks, maybe less than that, before me leaving for this expedition that I planned for, a year plus, I got reports from my doctor that I needed immediate surgery on my intestines, that I was sick and that I needed to get this done right away. And I said, well, I got an expedition to go climb Denali. And he said,
it was like 3 days away.
Yeah, it was. I guess it was literally around the corner. And he's like, oh, if you go, you're not coming back. And I was like, well, I don't think that's true. But also, if I go, I'm doing something I love. I mean, I guess I didn't really listen to him. We didn't really believe that would happen. So
you went against doctor's orders.
I did. And so at the time when I was climbing, my intestines had
it fused
to my spinal column. And I've had shooting pain in my legs, nerve pain, that I thought was normal for my whole life, or for the last couple of years of me hiking and climbing other peaks and this and that. And so I got on the mountain and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sick. What's going to happen? So when Patrice said altitude didn't affect me, what did affect me is the gas in my stomach and the pressure and all of that, and my diet and what I eat and going to the bathroom. That was really tough. So that mental part of me really kind of wore me down. And so mentally when I was at 20,000 feet, I was just like, I think I'm done. This is it. I probably can make it up, probably make it down. Yeah. But
the rest of his team summited.
Just about. Yeah. About
well,
6 of them. Yeah.
You started with like
13. Yeah. About 6 of them did. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Crohn's is an autoimmune digestive?
Digestive. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That I've had since I was a kid, and I was pretty sick, and even when I was up in Denali doing research, I was sick and all that. And
you were in remission for many years.
Many years, yeah. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And so so I got off the mountain 23 days ish or something like that, and returned to actually
it was Denver.
Actually to Denver, and my doctor, we walked in and he goes, "Wow, I thought for sure you'd be dead. I'm surprised you're here." And that's Patrice and I were like, "Well, you're not our doctor anymore. So goodbye."
That's not something you say.
Yeah, and so I did have surgery almost kind of quickly after that. We got us I was sick for a while, but it didn't stop me. I still would go climb Mount Hood. I did Mount St. Helens. I did all this sick. Yeah.
What was it like managing Crohn's on the AT, or I guess the TA for that matter? I guess just like in the context of thru-hiking.
So I have in my journal actually, I marked like all the times that Justin dug a hole, because he just couldn't make it to the outhouses.
Yeah.
And I think like he was definitely in remission at that time, and so we didn't really put much emphasis on his Crohn's, nor did we change anything about his diet or anything at that time. And I would say the only thing that was like hard was just bathroom
all the time. I mean, she or how many times I went to the bathroom compared to her, and how many times I dug holes or used outhouses or something like that. But I feel very at home in nature.
Yeah.
Because I actually don't like outhouses. I love digging holes. We're guys.
I'm kind of the same way.
Yeah.
I would rather not be. Outhouses aren't always the best smelling place.
Yeah. I love nature. I love being out there, going to the bathroom. It's totally fine. We're guides in Denali. That's what we do as a living. We take people hiking. And so that's the first thing I tell people. Don't be ashamed. If you need to go to the bathroom, you need to go to the bathroom. I'll show you how to dig a hole. I'll do this. I might have to dig a hole. So,
he did okay on the AT.
I did okay on the AT. Yeah. On the TA,
it was kind of starting to get bad.
Getting bad, yeah. And the meals, we're lazy backpackers, so we do eat, the Mountain House backpacker pantry. We are like eating those are not the best for you.
On even the best stomach.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. So if you were doing it ideally from a digestion standpoint, how would you eat on trail?
Oh my God. I think that he tends to shy away from eating sometimes,
Okay.
just because he's worried a little bit. But I would say that even, I guess, on trail, you're more comfortable going to the bathroom, so you might eat, but like you just kind of like eat in small doses.
Got
Small
it.
doses, yeah.
So it's
yeah.
the frequency and amount more so than what you're eating.
Yeah. And I mean, on Denali, it's really difficult because you're not digging a hole in ice and snow.
Right.
You're carrying a little can with you, and that's how you go.
Huh.
And there's no trees or anything to hide behind. You're just going out in nature.
Yeah.
You're doing it. I mean, when we got to camp, obviously we'd set up where our tents would be, and we dig a little place to put our toilet and stuff. And we brought a bigger toilet for them, like a 5-gallon bucket, but we carry little individual ones that we usually go in.
How heavy does that get after 2 or 3 weeks?
So what you do is you end up burying it,
Okay.
but you end up retrieving it. So and prior to 2016, there were 3 spots on Denali where you were allowed to dump your materials into a crevasse. And after, I think it was like 2017, 18, the Park Service asked that those 3 spots that you don't do that anymore, and that you carry every single thing off the mountain except your pee. So when you're climbing, you're burying stuff. So you're burying all your garbage, you're burying your poo, you're not peeing in your poo barrel because that freezes, you pee next to it. And you're burying all the supplies that you don't need, like your sled, or I don't need my snowshoes anymore. I need crampons now. So you're burying this and you're marking it and you're retrieving it on the way down. You mark it with your team flag and you retrieve all this. So you retrieve your material, your poop after you come down.
What a victory lap coming down from the mountain
With all
digging
your
up all your shit and trash.
Yeah. But
Got nothing
Denali-
left food-wise. You just
Yeah.
have poop.
Right.
Well, and Denali, surprisingly, was an extremely clean mountain. I mean, I've never been to Everest, but I've seen pictures of Everest
Right.
and places that have just the filth. Denali is extremely clean. There's no garbage up there. I mean, once in a great while, we'd find someone's pee spot. That's about it. But just don't melt that snow, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and I mean, I did the whole Leave No Trace tour, sick, and getting surgeries and stuff, and it was crazy. I mean, I had a colostomy bag for 2 years, and so
If you don't know what that is, that
Yeah,
just means that
look
you're
it
not
up.
going out your butt. You're
Yeah.
going into
yeah,
something that you're carrying around with you.
yeah, which was terrible. I hated it, but we still didn't let it interfere, and we go climb mountains and do things like Mount Hood and Mount St. Helens.
I think
and
that's
North
probably one
Cascades.
of the reasons why we have been so adamant about like living non-traditionally, because life is too short, and he wants to do what he wants to do while he can, and those days are probably limited. And so to be able to sort of just keep like chasing that dream, like if and it's not everybody can do it. We live extremely frugally, so
Yeah.
that's the only way we can keep these seasonal jobs and still live this life.
Yeah, I meant hence the very small cabin, just the 2 of us, and we penny pinch our money, but we like to spend it on travel or going to do a hike or a climb, or we just got back from Spain. We did that on the cheap, so I meant, yeah.
Do you ever foresee going back into the corporate lifestyle? Because I imagine you could slide back into that if you wanted
Never.
to.
That's a hard no.
Yeah.
Hard
yeah,
no,
yeah.
never. No, we'll keep doing this.
I think
Yeah.
we have now that because over the years we've just thrown so much mud at the wall to see what sticks, that we have all these different streams of income that we've seen have worked for us. And so knowing that we have options, that's kind of like a safety net.
I mean, we do so much in Denali. We're both hiking and backpacking guides. We scrub toilets. We clean Airbnbs. We're both writers, so we're writing for everyone from Outside Magazine to Outdoor Life to Alaska Magazine. So at any time we're writing stories. We just kind of do anything. Patrice worked at Alaska Geographic nonprofit this summer, and
I've worked at the library in town.
Yeah.
We do have a library.
Yeah, we have a little library. I'm not bashful. I'll work at my friend's hot dog stand if I want to, something like that. But we feel fortunate that we can still take people hiking, and that's mainly what we do in Denali. Is we take people out and exploring and hiking, whether we're going for an hour hike or a full day or an overnight or something like that. We do that, and I still push through it, even though a lot of times I'm feeling terrible. And as Patrice said, like if I'm going out on a huge hike, I won't eat.
Yeah.
And people call me out on it. They'll be like, "We've been out all day, and you haven't touched your water or ate anything." I'm like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good. Don't
It's
worry."
a terrible example.
Yeah.
Terrible example.
Are you starving the entire time? And
No,
No, he
Just trained your
somehow
body?
manages
I'm
it.
good.
He really, I think like part of it is like the mental. He's like, if I eat something, I'm going to have to go.
Yeah. You've probably just trained your body to run on ketosis too.
Yeah. I mean,
it's bad. He's so like, he's like perpetually dehydrated. I mean, he was always like that. Even like our first through hike for the AT, I would be like downing so much water. I'm always thirsty.
And I'd be like, that's weight. I don't want that.
Yeah. So, going through your resume, it seems like you guys shift gears every 18 months, sometimes less, sometimes more. I'm curious, what is the next chapter?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I think
we really do love Denali, and we love this lifestyle we have there and busting our butts in the summer and doing that. But the problem is we still want to hike. I mean, we want to do the PCT. We want to do the CDT. We want to do other trails. But can we do that during the summer? So I think we need to work a little bit more. There's also another trail in Alaska, the Alaska Long Trail. It's going to be about 1,000 miles.
Yeah, it's still very
much.
But
much we
in
love
development.
to be the first, or like to do that, and then maybe write some articles about that or something like that.
Yeah.
No,
Does it
I
go
think
through Denali?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Not over Denali.
Oh, yeah.
So
I mean, like,
not over. Yeah,
I
through the
imagine
park.
not many trails are going.
I mean,
over
we
that.
get that a lot too. That people are like, "Oh, okay, so can we go hike Denali?" And I'd be like, "No. You have to fly there, and that takes like weeks to climb Denali.
It's not hiking.
It's not hiking. It's climbing." Yeah.
I think that now I've discovered my inner homebody too. Like settling down, like that was a big change for us, and it's still pretty new. We're just going on 6 years ish, maybe less. And I think we love Alaska. I mean, people live there their whole life and they don't explore the whole state. So we have been trying to just get around the state and feel like we do it justice.
And the way we have to do that are small planes, because we've already driven everywhere we can drive, almost in Alaska. During the pandemic, we're like, let's just drive everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we like to fly. And so one thing we do in Alaska right now is we're part of the Iditarod. And the Iditarod's a sled dog race. It's 1,049 miles. Now, we're not racers, but what we do is we fly to remote villages and set up checkpoints. And so we're
part of the volunteer team.
Part of the volunteer team that does this. And so every March, we look forward to this, and we're excited. What village are they going to send us to? And we do this half because we love the Iditarod and the dogs, but we also do this because we get to explore a remote native village that very few people get to go to except during the Iditarod. And sometimes it's only during the Iditarod. And these villages might have 20, 30, 40, 100 people in them. And it's just amazing to see these people, because you think we live like rough? No, these people live rough. Like, come
the
on
native
now.
communities
Yes,
of
these
Alaska
natives
are so
hardcore.
Yeah,
they're just unbelievable, and we learned so much from the elders there and all of this. So like that's like one thing we do. And Patrice is right. There's so much to do in Alaska, and we know that, we probably can't be there for the rest of our life. Can we be 70, 80 years old running to an outhouse? The closest hospital is over 2 hours away. If we get sick and we need some type of treatment, is that possible to do that? I would rather live there and just perish on Denali or something like that, or in the
I have
backcountry.
a shelf life for like actually living there.
Yeah.
But if one of us gets
squeezing
sick,
it out of your system. Now.
Yeah. But I meant
Yeah, we don't have any definitive like adventures lined up. We feel like we still live this adventurous life because we're in Alaska.
Right.
That's like unique.
I mean, I do think one day we'll say, let's go do another trail or something like that. I mean, this September I am going to Kilimanjaro. I'm going to try to climb that with a team of some folks, and we're going to try to take a man up that's in a wheelchair. And so it's not about me climbing; it's about all of us trying to get him up there, up this mountain. So
that's awesome.
That's something we're trying to do. But yeah, I think I don't know. I mean, I know we want to do more trails, and we talk about it all the time. Should we just do it this summer? Should we do it this summer?
Yeah.
It's hard to give up that income.
I know.
Totally. The requisite question I can't believe I haven't hit on. Are you guys getting grizzlies coming through your property?
Yeah, we get that a lot.
Yeah,
we get that question a lot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So in the park, there's like 300 grizzlies. Okay. But where we live, we don't really have that many coming through the neighborhood. Certainly, occasionally, maybe once a year.
Once a year, yeah.
But we've never seen one in our neighborhood. The bigger problem are actually the moose.
Yeah, we have moose like you have elk and deer here.
Sure.
Like, they're all over, moose, and they're a problem.
Yes.
And they're the problem.
I know they can be aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
More aggressive. Yes. So when we run into bears in the backcountry, 99.9% of the time, bears run away. We've been guiding forever, and I've never sprayed a bear. And we don't carry guns; we carry bear spray.
Yeah.
And the bear. I mean, the environment in Alaska, especially in Denali, is much that's like tundra. So a lot of times it's like open air. So you can kind of see the bear. You're supposed to stay whatever 300 yards away, and you can because you see them. And so we often see bears in the backcountry, but we've never gotten close enough where we feel threatened. Moose, the difference with moose, like Justin said, the bear will run away if they see or smell you, or you make noise like you're supposed to do. With the moose, the difference is you could be making noise and you could be doing all your best like bear tactics. The moose are just going to continue to be grazing and just be like, I hear humans, but I don't care. They're gonna go the other way. But you just all of a sudden come upon the moose, and you're like, oh crap.
Yeah.
And
the moose
been
charged?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I've been charged 3 times. He's not been charged.
No, once.
Oh, once.
No.
Yeah, with me. Yeah, that's actually a funny story. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, of course.
This isn't even guiding. It's walking around our neighborhood.
Yes. So
when we open our door to go to the outhouse, to go outside, we do look both ways to see if
Not
perhaps
for cars, but for moose.
perhaps if there's a bear or moose. But we
especially
see
because in the winter it's like dark too.
Yeah,
You're
it's
like,
dark, and the moose literally do walk by our cabin, walk by the window. They look in. We also have lynx, which are big cats. That we see a lot of those. But
yeah, so we were like Justin said, our yurt it's probably like less than a quarter of a mile away from our cabin, and so in the winter, like a lot of times if we're taking a walk, we're like, oh, let's just walk to the yurt or ski or whatever. And so this was a day that it was March, and we were just quickly going to drop off something to the yurt.
book. I think this book.
Yeah, and so we hadn't really and it was a cold day. It was below 0. We hadn't really prepared anything or been in our snow clothes because we were just literally going to the yurt and back, and we actually didn't bring our phones either.
Neither of us.
That's right. And so we're walking, and Justin says, "Oh, stop, I see a moose." And it was a young one, like a yearling or something, and it was in the woods, and it just ran the other way. So he's like, okay, we're good. So we turn to go onto the road that the yurt is on, which is not plowed or anything. And once we turned on that road, all of a sudden the mom comes barreling out of the woods, and she's now at the top of the road. We're walking down the road. She's probably only how many feet away?
I don't know, pretty close, 20, 30 feet.
Yes, but she stopped, and she's just staring at us. We're staring at her. So you're supposed to run from moose. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to run from bear. Never run from bear.
When you say run from moose, do you mean back away or turn your back and...
Turn your back and run.
Run.
So
and go into the trees.
Yeah.
You're supposed to go into trees and hide behind trees.
Sure.
Moose aren't there to eat you, so they're probably going to stop.
Yeah.
They are, yes, and their threat level is just usually protecting their young. They're not at all interested in what you have on you food-wise or anything. And they do what bears do, called a bluff charge. So a lot of times they will run at you and run the other way. So the idea of running and getting behind a tree is that once they realize that you're not in their line of sight or a perceived threat, they're going to be fine, and they're just going to go the other way. So we're just on this open road, of snow-covered road, and we see this moose. She's stopped, and Justin's like, okay, walk really fast. And then he's so she starts coming after us. And so then he says, run. And so meanwhile, not prepared. It's 0 degrees. I'm not a runner. He's running. He's ahead of me. I'm running. I'm so out of breath with the cold air. I'm looking over my shoulder. I see the moose getting closer. He's ahead of me. And I'm thinking in my head, oh my gosh, I have to get behind a tree. So I run off to get behind a tree, except it's all snowy. So there's this huge dip in the ground. And our snow has low humidity, kind of like Colorado snow. So I just fall into the snowbank. And Justin stops, the moose stops. Justin turns around and says, "What are you doing?"
It's she's I'm trying to get to a tree. I'm well, you're in a snowbank now.
And I'm
and the moose is looking at her
yes. And Justin's well,
feet.
get out of there. I'm I can't do it very quickly. I'm up to my chest in the snow.
Yeah.
And so the moose kind of just starts walking toward us slowly. And so he just starts yelling at it and doing what he can, in a sort of kind of opposite, I guess, of what you're supposed to do. He's he's acting like a threat. And he pulled me out, and how nice of him. He said, run. And he lets me run ahead of him.
I was we gotta run.
He says he saved me, and I'm okay, you should have been running with me or behind me the whole time.
So we run, and she's exhausted, and and we get to our yurt, and of course our yurt tonight, it's negative 40 degrees in the yurt, and we're sitting there. We both don't have phones, and we're we have to go back to our cabin. like, we can't stay in the yurt.
Yeah, it's cold. It's shut down.
It's shut down for the winter. So I'm like, we got to go back before it gets dark. It's going to be dark very soon. I'm like, we have to walk. So we walked. I don't think we saw her, right?
No. But we were
both scared, yeah.
For like weeks after that, I was just on edge every time I walked out of the cabin to go pee or something. I'm like,
well, you got charged too one summer going to the outhouse, and she had to run in underneath our house and hide under the house. She called me. I was like, "Oh, I'm at the golf course playing golf. You'll be all right. Don't worry."
Do you ever hear stories of people actually getting attacked?
Yes.
So, yeah.
My very good friend this summer was running from a moose, and she fell and broke her ankle.
Yeah.
And the moose was like came up to her and would have probably jumped on her, but there was somebody who witnessed the whole event and like started making noise to kind of like deter the moose, and the moose did back away. So she didn't get stomped, but people absolutely, especially in the winter, especially dog teams that are out mushing with the dog sleds. Oftentimes, like you're just out in the wilderness, and the moose are about, and if the moose are not happy about the dogs, and so they'll come and stomp dogs.
Yeah, they will. And so on the Iditarod, most mushers do carry a gun with them, and at least twice we've been there when they
had
have
to
shot
shoot a moose.
They've gone after the team, and they do this. And there's a rules official and everything, and they make sure. And the moose never goes to waste; it goes to a village. It does that.
I mean, I'd have no problem shooting a moose in the face if it's going to stop my dog.
No, and in fact, when we do our hikes and we talk to our people and we're going for a hike, whether we're going to the Alaska bush or we're going to do an established trail, we talk about the animals and we talk about the moose. And this summer, a guide in southern Alaska, professional guide, was trampled and killed by a moose. Whoa. So it happens to everyone. It's not the inexperienced.
He had been a guide for 30 years.
Not the inexperienced. It's everyone.
They're so unpredictable, and they're typically more agitated. Like the time of year that we saw this moose was March, and during the winter, they're not eating like the fresh vegetation. Everything's covered in snow. They're just eating bark, and typically it's a female moose with her young, and she's pregnant, so she's hangry. So we give her the benefit of the doubt, but that's kind of like the typical interactions with like. The moose are hungry at that time, in the winter.
So they're more aggressive in the winter because they are actually hangry.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, and we don't have traffic jams ever. We don't have any street lights or anything. We have moose jams. So we do get times where like, there's a moose in the road. You can't go anywhere. We've pulled into our driveway, and moose will be standing there, and we're like, okay, we got to wait for the moose.
Sit in the car.
Can you lay on the horn? Will that do anything?
You can. We just kind of try to be sensitive.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to like really like agitate them. So
yeah. And I mean, our cabin is kind of elevated, and we have a wonderful deck in the back that kind of sits above it, and the moose will just walk right there, and they won't see us up there, so we can watch them. And we still are enamored by the moose. We love them. We put our trail cams out. We have a seasonal pond where a mom and her babies come every year, and we put the trail cam out there to catch them. I mean,
they're great. I love them, but they're dangerous.
They're dangerous. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. I think that's a good note to end on too. Let people know where they should go to keep up with you, your website, social media, the book, obviously. Let people know where they should get that.
Yeah. So I'm actually still like a traditional blogger. Like I still have my blog that I started in 2008. I haven't switched to the newsletter style. So we have a website, Wandering Lavines, and that's where you can find all things like the blog, the book, the yurt. Yes.
Come stay at our yurt. Yeah. If any listeners want to come, we'll give you a 10% discount.
Oh, nice.
Come stay at our yurt.
Just reach out to us.
Is there a code, or they just reference the podcast?
I think if they just do the old-fashioned way, like send us an email.
Like, I heard about this. And I want to come to Denali. You can stay in our yurt.
Cool.
And Patrice's book is Between Each Step.
Yeah, married couples thru-hike on New Zealand's Te Aroa. So it's available on Amazon, and I also do sometimes send like signed copies to people, and if that's what they prefer. But I think we're on Instagram and Facebook, but not the other things.
Yes. Cool. Well, this is a ton of fun, guys. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. You've lived an extremely adventurous lifestyle for the last decade plus, and can't wait to see where it goes from here.
Great. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Before we get to the Trek propaganda, we didn't even address that you weren't at the interview at the first part, but you were traveling.
I was not here. I had some last-minute traveling to do.
Yeah.
So.
But it was great having them on. Mm-hmm. I thought the dynamic of 3 people it went very well. Oh,
So you're happy I wasn't there?
well, the thing I wanted to shout out was when you put me in charge of the video does not happen.
Yeah, I felt bad when you sent that asking about the memory cards. But I also didn't
I now have
feel
an extra
bad.
memory card here, so that won't happen again. But yeah, we had all the equipment, just didn't have the way to capture it.
Yeah, I had to take those to upload the videos.
Happens. So, but this will still be available on YouTube. We're figuring out how exactly it's going to look.
Yeah, the segment part we've got down. That's us on video, as per usual. Hi,
Yep.
internet.
Yep.
The interview part we are noodling on.
Yes. To the Trek propaganda portion of today's show. This one is by Kelly Floro. I have not read this one, so I'm just going to read the first couple paragraphs. This has been a very busy stretch for your boy.
What?
This is by Kelly Floro. Title is Man Accused of Staging Fake Bear Attack to Cover Up a Murder Has Been Arrested. That's not funny, but it is actually hilarious.
I'm just surprised this hasn't come across my newsfeed.
Yeah. An accused, you should be following the Trek. You,
I
just-
guess-
you
I
wait
guess
for
so.
you wait for Trek propaganda to get all your
I
Trek
didn't even know
news.
your store was a separate website till today.
It's funny because you have product on that
I
store.
know, I'm terrible.
An accused murderer who allegedly killed a man, stole his identity, and staged a fake bear attack to cover up the crime has been arrested in South Carolina following a 3-week manhunt. Nicholas Wayne Hamlet, 45, is believed to have lured 34-year-old Stephen Douglas Lloyd into the woods near Tellico Plains, a small town in eastern Tennessee, and killed him to assume his identity. Hamlet was wanted in Alabama. I don't know why I'm laughing. I shouldn't be. This is not like a laugh-worthy thing.
It's creative.
Maybe Paulie can edit it out.
Yeah, Polly, edit this so Zach sounds more empathetic.
Yeah. Was wanted in Alabama on a parole violation. The Monroe County, Tennessee Sheriff's Office received a 911 dispatch on October 24th from a man claiming to be a hiker named Brandon Andrade, who said he had been injured after a bear chased him off a cliff. Investigators later determined that the call had actually come from Hamlet and that the story had been made up. At the scene, rescuers found Lloyd's body with Andrade's ID. You guys, I'm not going to read the full article to you, but yeah, this is a wild one. And shout out to Kelly for taking some chances on this one. This is kind of like very loosely outdoors realm, but
That's wild.
yeah.
That would be a great, Kyle, if you're listening, this would be a great Kyle Hates Hiking
Yeah.
YouTube story.
I'm
And such a clickbaity title.
actually going to text him right now. That's a great
Yeah.
call.
Tell him I thought of it.
Say, you want to see my idea?
Yeah.
Okay. What else do we have here? Question of the day. You guys can probably guess whose idea this one was. What is the funniest sounding fart?
The one that you don't see coming. The one where, like, it's meant to be a laugh. Or, like, you, like, trip over something. You know, like, where it's just, like, you're not even, like, trying to hope it's quiet. It just didn't cross your radar that it was going to happen. So you surprise yourself in the process.
Yeah.
Those ones are always hilarious.
Sure.
Especially if you're in company with people that you would be devastated to do that around.
Yeah. Yoga's a tough one. We've done the funniest farts,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of more situational dependent. But
I think when someone's cracking up laughing and they're
Yeah.
laughing so hard they fart,
yeah.
it just makes you, like, you're already laughing, so you already got the funnies.
Yeah.
It makes everything funnier.
Sure. Yeah. I will, if I'm laughing genuinely very hard, I have a snort in me.
Do you?
Yeah. Sometimes
Wow.
the snort comes out.
Little piggy.
Yep. My preferred fart, my funniest fart is I like something that slaps. It's got like a slappy sound to it. It's like it's almost like reverberating, like a deep bassy fart. And there's like funny high pitched farts. I'm more of a low pitched guy. Like the
That's high pitched.
yeah. Well, so I found a fart that actually includes all of them.
The fact that you took time to do that.
Of course I did. Wait, let me back up here. So this is, have I told you my love affair with the cover your fart? Have you seen this meme on Instagram? I think it probably is.
I
on
think you've
TikTok.
talked about this.
No, that was the guess the fart.
Oh my God, there's so many.
Yeah, this is the cover your fart, which is literally just, it's mostly high school kids like dropping a book to try to conceal their fart, but like it's obviously just a pathetic attempt to cover up a fart that is not cover-upable. Like, it'll be somebody dropping a book and then like a 10-second fart.
Okay, so it's meant to be bad.
It's meant to not actually accomplish the goal, but it is funny. There's one here of a kid in his house. It seems like he's got like a TikTok page. He's standing in front of his dad, grabs a glass from the drying rack, and drops the glass in front of his dad to try to cover up the fart. And I'm just going to play the video for you.
Brandon, what the fuck are you doing? You and your fucking TikTok videos.
What?
You ain't going nowhere with that bullshit.
No.
Fucking
Dude,
son of a bitch.
what are you doing, dude?
Brandon, what the fuck are you doing? You and your fucking TikTok videos.
What?
You ain't going nowhere with that bullshit.
What are you doing, dude?
So back to the point. I think the first half of the fart, if we're just analyzing the fart itself, is
What's that?
it's my type of fart. I listen to binaural beats when I'm working. Sometimes it gets me in the zone.
You're so fascinating.
This is the alpha frequency. Music I find can be too distracting for me. I literally just need. You want to listen to it?
Yeah. Whoa.
That was less than 7 seconds. Yeah. But
I feel like I would just fall asleep.
so there are specific wavelengths that are good for sleep.
Wow.
Yeah. This one alpha is supposed to be for focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like a playlist? Where'd you find it?
No, this is just on YouTube, but there's a specific channel that I like. It's Sleep Tube, Hypnotic Relaxation. Some of the binaural beats are like nails on a chalkboard for me. So it's what they pair with the wavelengths that actually make a difference.
You gotta send me the playlist. I have there's an Apple Music app, and then Apple Music also has a separate app for classical music. So I usually play that
Classical music's
when
a
I'm
good
trying to
one.
read.
Yeah.
Because I need something without words, because if I'm reading and they're saying words in the
Yeah.
songs, it gets too confusing.
Yeah, I feel that. Next segment is Wedding Dress of the Week.
Yes, I picked my wedding dress, guys. This is very exciting. It is not what I thought I would choose for myself.
Is it black?
Garrett doesn't listen to this, so I can give some details. Just no one who listens to this tell Garrett. Obviously, that's like a major douche move.
Yeah.
But I was going for, like, I knew I didn't want lace, and I knew I liked like the satiny one fabric type looks, like very classy, very timeless. You won't regret it in like 20, 30 years. But every time I put on one of those dresses, the problem that I had was, the sample sizes are not built for petites. So not only do they clamp you in the back, which fine, they can do that, but like the torso's too long, the straps are too long. Like, you need a lot of imagination to picture what it looks like on you, and that's a big purchase. So that has been kind of an ordeal. So I was getting very disheartened. I actually cried the night before because I'd gone to see 2 places that day, and everything was just fine. And so I was.
How many dresses do you estimate you tried on before you made a decision?
30 to 50.
Wow, damn.
Probably closer to 30. But like, some of them were rapid fire. Some like barely touched my skin, and I was like, I don't like it. Take it off. And then other ones.
You didn't like the feel?
I didn't like how it looked on me. I'm 5'1", so certain dresses will make me look very short and frumpy. Or some of them just didn't fit enough for me to be able to envision it, and I'm not going to make a purchase like that on something that I can't see the end vision. And then the other problem I was having with those specific types of dresses was that a lot of the simple, classic, like elegant, timeless vibed dresses look like if they were in a different color, I could wear them to a different event. And for me, I'm like, if it's my wedding, I want it to feel like a wedding dress. I don't want it to feel like someone could show up in plum and be a guest.
Yeah.
You know? So I was very much having trouble, and I kept trying on a lot of variations of the same dress from different places, hoping that one would be like the one, and then there were just elements of each I didn't like. But I put this one on, did not expect to like it, and I think it looks great. It's a drop waist. Guys, we're not telling Garrett any of this, so keep this to yourself. It's a drop waist.
I'll pretend like I know what any of this means. I'm just going to be
I'll
relying
explain
on
it.
the images.
The
Yeah.
waist doesn't waist at the waist. It wastes like halfway down your butt.
Got it.
So because it's dropped, it makes you look taller.
Got it.
And that's the only thing I'll say about the dress
Yeah.
is that it makes me look taller.
Yeah.
But I'll show you a photo of it. And it's not what I expected to pick for myself. But I think it looks like a wedding dress. It feels like a wedding dress. It sounds like a wedding dress.
I assume you're not including the image for this in the podcast
No.
to keep it concealed.
You'll have to wait for the
from
big day.
Your fiance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Though it's really hard to not show him. That night I was like, do you want to see it? He's like, no, fuck off.
Oh, that's classy.
Yeah, you like it?
Yeah, I'm not going to make any commentary because I don't want to give away any additional information that you don't want out there. But the thing, I like
Yeah.
that. That's cool.
That's a good thing, right?
That's a good thing, yeah. Yeah. Nice, that's cool.
So that's it.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's about as sophisticated of feedback you can get
Yeah.
from a guy, or at least this guy.
No, I agree.
But I like it, and genuinely so.
Well, very good. So it fits nicely.
Does it feel like a weight off your back not having to pick it anymore?
Oh my God, I was so over it. Like, dress shopping is not fun. You have this vision of, oh my God, it's going
Aren't
to
you
be so
supposed to be
fun.
drinking champagne the entire time?
Yeah, the first time we did. The first time I went with Mims, aka Fireball, we had a great day of it. And then I got home and I was like, wow, I'm so tired and I haven't picked a dress. And like, I feel like everything was kind of lackluster. And then like, I went again by myself because I figured now that I know how I am, I'm not wasting people's time dragging them to this shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a chore until I have a better idea of what I want. And so I went by myself and I was like, well, lackluster again. And then I put off making appointments for like 2 months because I just didn't want to do it. And then I went to 2 more places in that one day, and everything was still just like fine. It was fine. I found one that I liked, and I was like, this is great. I like this one. It'll do. But still at the same time, I was like, it'll do, which isn't really what you want. So that was the night I cried. And then Garrett was all optimistic as he is. And he was like, how do you know tomorrow you're not going to find the one? Like, for all you know, tomorrow you could go in there and you could just find it. So like, maybe this is premature to cry. And I was like, no, why are you being so optimistic? And then I got home that day and he was like, see,
Yeah.
I told you.
Yep.
It just makes you livid.
You didn't want to pick the dress, but just to spite him.
Yeah, no, but it's a good dress.
Yeah.
So I picked it, and yeah, now I know what I'll be wearing.
Nice.
So that's one more thing crossed off the list.
What is the next step in the wedding planning process?
I've got to do some paperwork. I've got to sign the papers for the dress. I've got to sign the contract because they basically just got to tell you that you can't back out.
Yeah.
And then I've got to sign the contract for the photographer. I've chosen that too. Hiker, previous backpacker radio guest.
Oh.
We love to keep money in the community
Oh, nice.
where possible. So I was very excited about that.
Puma?
Uh-huh.
Sweet.
So now Puma, now that I've mentioned this, you can't book anything else. I know I haven't signed my contract yet, but and really great thing about that is Puma usually does weddings, and his photography is great. And because I know him, I'm like, well, you could also just come for the weekend and hang out. And so he's gonna come. It's gonna be like a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night thing because that's the nature of the venue. It's like a 3-day booking. So he's going to come Thursday night and take photos of the rehearsal dinner, hang out with everyone Friday. We're going to like go on boats and stuff. And then Friday night we have our welcome party. He's going to take photos of that. Saturday wedding, he's going to take photos of that. So I think we're going to get a lot of really nice candid photos throughout the weekend, which rocks because I hate those photos where you're all in a line and they just swap out people and you're standing there smiling the same.
Yeah.
Like there's no world that you're using 50 of the same photo.
Right.
And there's no world any of those people are using those photos because they're not the one in the dress.
Yeah.
You know, so I think having people in day clothes and different outfits candidly throughout the weekend is going to be great for everyone liking them and wanting to like see them more than just once. So yeah, and it's always nice to support hikers. I really like that.
Yeah.
So
Totally. Sweet.
yeah,
Awesome.
things are coming along.
Well, that was wedding dress of the week.
Yep.
To our Triple Crown. This is December 30th. If you're
Yeah.
listening the day that it comes out, you should. This is the Triple Crown of New Year's resolutions. I feel like we do this every year. I'm trying to think back on some of the ones that I've... Okay, well, so one of the ones that I've used in the past, I'm going to use it again, but with a caveat. I'm just trying to think back to some of the other ones. I think one year I said travel more. Real ambitious of me. I think I accomplished that. But I don't have those kind of ambitions anymore.
Yeah.
Mine have evolved. Yeah, so I guess let's just jump right into it.
Okay.
Do you make any effort to follow through with your New Year's resolutions?
I usually set a theme. Me and my best friend have had a habit of setting themes. Like one year our theme was do it yourself, which is just like, I mean, it's self-explanatory, but like if you want to get something done, just do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that was the theme one year. One year we had burn bridges. That was an interesting year.
So what's your theme this year?
We haven't talked about it yet.
Got it.
So the theme is
undecided. You guys have the same theme then.
Yeah. We'll just pick like a funny theme based on the year, and then we'll try to like embrace it.
Yeah.
My first one, I would love to finish the research for the intro episodes / section of the Mile by Mile project. It has been 5 years as of November that I have been reading and researching for this project, and man, do I know a lot of stuff. Like, I know things, which is great. But I'm up to the Civil War, so I'm currently a little Civil War buff, and I'm reading all about all the different stuff. I'm reading a book about Gettysburg. I'm just diving into Civil War stuff. I'm learning who all the commanders were. I'm learning about the 20th Maine, and I'm learning about all these different regiments. And, you know, all the stuff that happened along the trail. Obviously, there's a heck of a lot of Civil War history in Pennsylvania with South Mountain and with Gettysburg being so close to the trail, and Antietam is close to the trail.
Is it? I don't know, because you've been doing more of the research. Is it Gettysburg?
Jesus, you know I don't know how to pronounce it.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. No, because this happens all the time where, like, there's a word that I think I know, and then I hear, like, a historian pronounce it.
No,
and
this
is...
is...
that's not what I thought it was.
Probably my biggest fear about this project is that I can't pronounce things.
Yeah.
And, like, especially when it comes to, like, Native American history, some of these names are really hard.
Oh, I would just say, like, the H word.
Yeah, so that's a fear of mine, is that I'm going to mess up a pronunciation somewhere and just get crucified.
I biffed on a word in Alison Condler's intro, and I didn't even re-record it. I'm just like, I'm never gonna get this right, and I laughed my way through it and just moved on. Ornithological.
That's a fair word to biff. That's a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah, mine's mainly names.
Yeah.
Names.
I don't know. I think it's Gettysburg, but if you told me it was
Gettysburg,
then.
I mean, I'm gonna have to pick if I say Appalachian or Appalachian. You know, like even that's gonna be controversial. So pronunciations are gonna be hard. But
I think if you Google that, a Trek article that I wrote comes up.
Really?
At least it did at one point.
See, I gotta check out this website, the Trek.
Okay, we're down to number 4 in the rankings. You guys should visit the page and I think scroll around a bit. I forget how it works.
Yeah. So that's my first goal, is I really would love to get the overall, because the way this thing is structured is, for anyone who's new here, it's research on the Appalachian Trail, because there's obviously tons of things about the AT out, and a lot of it starts when the AT starts, like a history of the trail from the concept of a long footpath connecting Maine to Georgia, right? But like so much shit has happened there before that idea. So all the research that I've done starts at the beginning of time. Like, how did the mountains form, into how did people get there, into like what wildlife and plants and everything is there, into when did white settlements start to happen, how did they make their way in and push other people out, and then through like industrialization and present day and, you know, urbanization and all that, and then into finally conservation, which is like, how do we keep this shit from going away forever. And I'm up to the Civil War, so I'm in the 1860s, and it should be smooth sailing from here, because the thing that was really hard about the beginning bits is, like, prior to things being written down, you know, a lot of Native American history is spoken language, so to find targeted stuff takes a lot of digging. And so I had to spend a lot of time figuring out, like, one of the hard parts was, how did people get here? Like, okay, the Cherokee are in North Carolina, Tennessee, fine. But when did they start using the name Cherokee? You know, like, and then when did they get here? Because they came from the West, in theory. And so when did they move? And how do you figure that out? So that was a lot of time spent on that shit. And like, now that you're in the 1860s, everything's in books. So it should be faster and more targeted. Do you feel like you're getting
too drilled down into the details?
I'm in so many rabbit holes. Yes, absolutely. But like, I want to be there. I want to just be in all these rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So I just need to keep reading and ditch the rest of my social life.
Yeah, there you go.
So goodbye free time.
On a year where you're getting married should be easy enough.
Yes, I can't see any reason why this shouldn't work.
Yeah.
But I'm ready for those episodes to go out because I'm ready to focus on the smaller stuff, and I keep having all these ideas and I'm writing them in a notebook, and I'm overwhelmed with the ideas I have, and I need to get closer to them. So this will be the year.
I'll tell you, definitely get it done before you have kids.
Yeah.
That'll make it hard.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at, and I think it's promising. I think I'm at a very good spot. I just need to focus.
Yeah.
So that's by far the biggest resolution I have for the year is get that done.
Yeah. Mine is similarly ambitious. I've used this in the past, but I'm going to follow through this time, again with a caveat, is to not use exclamation points in emails. I feel like such a fucking phony every time I do it, but I also feel like the perception of communication makes it seem like you're an asshole if you don't include it in the appropriate spots. So I really I think I went like 2 weeks, was it last year, maybe a couple of years ago, without using exclamation points. And then I just felt so insecure about the way that I was going to be perceived in communication. I think I'm going to add a note in my byline, my signature, explaining that I don't use exclamation points, just to give people that understanding that I'm not mad. Maybe I'm an asshole, I don't know, but I'm not going to just fakely include exclamation points because that's the way that we communicate online nowadays, to say like, I'm not an asshole, I'm not upset, I'm happy. I'm done, I'm out.
I've been doing something similar with sorries and apologies in emails. Like, I got an email on a Friday and I didn't respond till Monday, and Monday morning, like 8 a.m., they double emailed me to see if I saw it. And I started it with like, oh, apologies for the delay, and I just backspaced it. Like, I'm not sorry about the delay. I'm not checking my email over the weekend. I need a break. Or I had a partnership that I'm supposed to be doing for a company in December, and I had to email them and ask them if they'd be open to pushing it back to January, just because outside things, December has become very hectic. So I basically emailed them and said, hey, like, if the brand is open to doing this in January, would love to work with them then. I just can't commit to December because of X, Y, and Z. And I had started off with like, hey, so sorry, like, da-da-da. And then I wrote it out. And then I deleted the sorry part because I'm like, I'm really not sorry. Like, based on what's going on in my personal life, like, I can't manage this right now. And I'm not sorry for prioritizing what I'm prioritizing. And that's just like, I'm willing to lose this partnership if that is what it costs.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not sorry about it. So I'm not going to write that I'm sorry.
Yeah, good. Let's fight the good fight together.
Yeah. So mean emails from us from this point forward.
Yeah. No, it's funny because if you didn't say it in a spoken interaction, I don't think anyone would be put off. There's a different thing that happens over email or just like written communication in general.
Yeah.
You have to like kind of be overly kind to not make sense. I don't know.
I use dashes a lot. I find dashes are a great way to connect two sentences without punctuating.
Oh yeah,
in an email.
My emails look like they're written by a caveman. I don't even proof my emails anymore, and like that, I'm sure it's really apparent with all the typos that I've got.
Well, double periods, like a period after a sentence and then a sentence and then a period, like that scares me.
Yeah. My next New Year's resolution is, I said I was going to do it this year, it didn't happen. I'm going to finish the Denver Orbital Trail.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. I'm officially not liking the trail. And I haven't done any of it in a long time. But I started it and I said I was going to finish it. Didn't finish it in the timeline that I was going to say I was going to finish it. But I've done so much of it and I want to just say that I did it. And we'll maybe do like a Patreon episode or something about it. But I'm going to finish it. It's just bike trail left and it's hard to get stoked for that. But I don't know. I'll have to find ways to make it entertaining. Booze, I'll have to run a good portion of it, but I'm going to finish it.
Hell yeah. Similar to yours, I'm going to do a hike of some sort. Don't know what, don't know how long, don't know where, know nothing about it, but I think it's nice to do at least one each year. Reminds you how fun it is. I'm sure it'll just be like another short one due to time constraints. But I think it's good to get one. I think if I got to December 31st, 2025 and I didn't do some sort of hike in 2025, I would be pretty upset with myself.
Yeah.
So something somewhere.
Nice. I think I've got 8 days carved out to do something. I've got my eyes on a couple of options, but
Yeah. Would love to go like West Highland Way, Tour de Mont Blanc, but that adds in another variable of like planning.
Yeah.
So who knows? But something somewhere.
Yeah.
And my last one, this one's a little half-assed because I'm not sure if I really believe in it, but I would like to go to sleep earlier at night. I think a lot of people my age are starting to be like 9 p.m. bedtime gals, and that's just never been me. I'm a night owl. I'm most productive between the hours of 12 a.m. and 3 a.m. So on one hand, I'm anti this idea because that's my most productive hours and I am who I am. But on the other hand, they just seem so well rested, and I'm at a point where I'm very sleep deprived and I'm very tired and all I want to do is nap. So maybe this is just like my present state playing in on it, but being someone who gets in bed at 8 and like cozies up with a cup of tea and a book and then falls asleep at 9 just seems too good to be true. Like wakes up refreshed.
Yeah. I too biologically am much better at being awake at night. I'm in bed usually at 9, sometimes earlier, but I'm awake for at least an hour just fucking off on my phone. But yeah, I think I've been averaging 8 hours of sleep for months, and it's so good. It's so nice. It makes you prepared to handle the day.
Well, I get 8 hours. That's easy. I could go to bed at midnight and wake up at 8 a.m. and I'll have 8 hours.
Yeah.
But it's not enough.
Yeah. Okay.
I need more. I want to sleep for 12.
Yeah.
10 to 12.
Yeah. Well, you were saying you're up till 3 sometimes.
Yeah.
Is that like a weekend?
No, not always. I was up till 3 the other day. I'm reading Gettysburg and it got good.
Yeah. That's not 8 hours. Unless you're just...
Well, I don't always wake up at 8 a.m.
Yeah. Oh.
We'll leave it at that.
Your employer's not listening.
They might be.
Yeah.
My territory is in California, so I have an extra hour for time zone.
Nice. My last resolution is, this is something I've actually been noodling on, is we're going to spice up the podcast in 2025.
Really?
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
I think we've gotten a little too stuck in our ways, and I'm not going to spill any beans quite yet. I might unveil it at our Palooza.
Well, you should spill the beans to me first.
Well, yeah, duh.
Yeah.
That's why I said Palooza. Yeah, the listeners are not going to find out at the same time as you.
Well, tell me when we hang up.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, the coming year of the podcast is going to have new elements.
Ooh, okay. Does this have anything to do with that list I looked at? Or is that just like one of the things?
What? No.
That's just separate?
Yes.
Okay.
Unrelated. Cool. That's it. I don't have any honorable mentions.
I would like to catch up on my backlog of YouTube videos. I've got 2 videos. I just finished editing the Ozark Highlands Trail videos. Oh my God, wait, you've got to see this. This is funny. This is how the last video ends. And these ones have done not great on YouTube because they're vertical, because that was just like how I filmed them with all the water crossings. It was easier to hold my camera that way. So the view counts on those are a little lackluster if anyone wants to go on there and press play and just leave their computer alone for a while. But this is how it's going to end, and it's so funny. It's a fireball hike, and she's always hilarious, but press play on that.
At the Tyler Bend Visitor Center, right here on our left, crossing my fingers they have something warm. After that cold plunge at the creek, there is Miss Margaret Mims.
The fanny pack just slapping about. What'd she say?
Shake those
That's the
titties.
end of our hike.
So that's how it ends. It's just her screaming across the visitor center, shake those titties.
And she was.
Yep.
She's a woman of her word.
Yep. So I want to get those caught up. I've got the Foothills Trail that I've got to upload. I've got the the Teton Crest Trail. I've got the Northville Placid Trail. So she's got a backlog, and I need to get through it.
Yep.
So yeah, that's an honorable mention goal.
Nice. Mailbag.
I wanted to thank Chaunce. Oh, hi. Yay. Okay. I wanted to thank Chaunce for mentioning Mountains of the Heart.
You literally perked up when you read that.
Yeah, I love when they talk about me. I wanted to thank Chaunce for mentioning Mountains of the Heart, written by Scott Weidensaul in one of your AT episodes. It is an undeniably beautiful read and has been a tremendous help as my 1-year Nobo AT through anniversary recently passed. Thank you for the content you all make available to this wild community. From Santiago/Matthew. Yay, I love when people read the books that I say are good. This was a great one. If anyone else wants to read a good book that revolves around the AT Mountains of the Heart, it's a great one.
Sweet. 5-star review. This is from Snark007. Love the podcast. I love this podcast. I love how the content at any second just goes off to some of the most bizarre topics, and I just start shaking my head and laughing. Keep up the great work. Snark007, you keep up the great work. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us any number of stars.
Just not 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting. Alex Kindle, new name.
Mm-hmm. There's something there. We got to think of something book themed.
What's the Kindle format? Is that the .mobi? No. What's the KDP?
I thought that was just the Amazon print on demand.
Yeah, what is the Kindle format?
I think it is KDP. I think that might be a little too niche.
We'll get there.
Yeah. You could also think of something fire related.
Sure. Alex Kindle, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Ben Love, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Fables,
Christopher Marchburn, Coach from Marine Outdoors, Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
Friendly Ghost,
Eric Hoffman, Jillian Daniels, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Griffin Hey, Would You Bring Me a Beer, Haley Buckingham,
Palace,
Liz Seeger, Mud Tom. I feel like there's got to be one for that too. That's too fun of a name.
That is a fun name.
Patrick C. Cialo, Rebecca Brave, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo,
and Tracy Trigger. And thank you to Paulie and his delicious beans. Snag some of Paulie's delicious beans at Old Man Murph's website at ommcr.com. Paulie's our guy. You can follow us on social at Backpacker Radio on TikTok and Instagram, at BackpackerPod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Chaunce.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey. You can find me on YouTube at Juliana Chauncey. And you can get our books, Hiking from Home, A Long Distance Hiking Guide for Family and Friends, and either Appalachian Trials or Pacific Crest Trials in our fun little holiday book bundle, which is on the Trek Shop, which is a separate website from the Trek. So if you can't find it by searching it on the Trek, you're doing what I did, which is wrong.
Store.thetrek.co. Yeah, we got to talk about the timeline for the book bundle.
Yeah.
But
get it quick because it's going to go away.
Yeah. Pretty soon it's January, and maybe that's the time that we stop doing it.
Yeah.
It's going to go away for sure. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow us on YouTube.
Hi, Internet.
Sorry for dropping the ball in the interview there. Need to have backup SD cards. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.